We'd like to call the regular board meeting to order at 7:08 p.m. For those who are able, if you could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silent prayer. You'll remain standing for a moment of silent prayer. Thank you. The first item on the agenda are public comments, and we did agree as a board in the work session to move old business before consent agenda. So at this time, there's public comments. If you'd give your name and whether you're a township resident or not for the record, and it's 3 minutes. Thank you.
My name is Arloa Kaiser. I'm a resident of the township, and what I want to do is just pass on some information. There was a death in the township, and after the funeral in a couple weeks, that kind of thing, the house was broken into, and all the copper tubing was stolen from the house. So if you have someone, I don't know about putting names in paper or what, but you know, the family has one disaster, and then this is something that's bad. I just wanted the township people to know, to be careful.
Thank you very much.
You sure? Yeah. Okay. Hi, my name is Jane Wolf. I'm an Ypsilanti Township resident, and I wanted to speak on this last time, but I wanted to get caught up on all of it. So. I do support the proposal that was talked about last time about the exploratory study into the cost breakdown of policing. However, I do really want to know what I'm paying for as well, but I do want the township to seek some public comment when making decisions after the study is complete and to hold a public forum with those results. I think community members deserve the chance to voice their concerns and desires when it comes to policing in the township. Further, the township should consider alternatives to traditional policing that have been shown not only to increase public safety, but also give opportunities for people to thrive and stay within their community. There is strong evidence that increased policing does little to actually keep communities safe. As far back as 1973, the National Advisory Commission on the Criminal Justice Standards and Goals found that the prison, the reformatory, and the jail had achieved only a shocking record of failure. There's overwhelming evidence that these institutions create crime rather than prevent it, and that's a direct quote. I would hope that the township would consider things like the care-based safety proposal that was put together this year, which would give residents a non-police response team. Police are there to respond to harm and do little to actually prevent it. Harm comes from unmet needs. The best way to keep communities safe is to make sure that needs are met. Things like well-paying jobs, mental health support, including resources for substance use, childcare, well-funded schools, public transportation, and as well as feeling connected and supported by your neighbors and community. These are the things that actually prevent crime. These are the things that the township should be spending our tax dollars on. Only 4% of policing handles violent crime. That leaves 96% of calls that could be handled without police and by people who are better supported or better resourced and equipped to meet the needs of the residents without the threat of escalation, injury, and death. The massive amount of money spent each year to respond to crime could be better spent giving resources to the community that you represent. We know that the safest communities are not the most heavily policed, they're the most heavily resourced. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Laura Witkowski. I'm also a resident of the township, and I just want to further stress looking into care-based programs and how our funds are being spent in terms of helping our community so that we can prevent harm rather than adding violence to situations that don't need violence. So really want to know a lot about what's going to happen with this police thing. So we will be paying attention. So
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming out. Very much appreciated.
So Monica Ross Williams, 2150 Chevrolet. I think I made my concerns known in the working session, so I won't repeat those again. But I was overlooking the minutes, and I'm not really sure what's going on with them. It looked like it was a lot of information that didn't have broken paragraphs. I'm not sure, and then I'm not sure what is going on with them. It looked like there's AI created minutes. And I don't know if those minutes were actually also proofread. So that's a question that I have just generally. I know everyone has a tendency, or maybe a lot of people have a tendency to use AI, but AI is not perfect by no means. And so proofreading is needed. So that's what I would suggest on that. And I wanted to make sure I made that known. Next, just real quick, I would have to vehemently disagree in regards to that communities and police units cannot work together in order to solve crimes. I live in West Willow. I'm not saying West Willow is a crime neighborhood because I have lived there and owned my house since 2001. But I do know for a fact that when we were with the neighborhood association and we had community policing that actually came in and talked to the residents and actually walked around our neighborhoods in order to make sure that the deputies know the people of the neighborhood and the people of the neighborhood know the deputies, that statistically our crime went down in West Willow. So to just say that we should just throw away the police model is more about what the police model looks like and community policing. And I don't know where that term has got threw out at, and basically we should not have police now, but I don't agree with that. And I would probably say that many residents that have lived in West Willow and saw what happened during the years of 2007 to pretty much now would not agree with that either.
Thank you.
Hi, Madam Chair. I just want to speak about the issue of the township. Oh, my name is Karen Holman, and I live in Ypsilanti Township, coordinating with the county for early voting only. And not only, it would save the township some money, but also it would increase access to voting because there'd be an additional voting location. It would also increase the dissemination of voter information and education, which is really important now because so many laws have changed. So I want to advocate for that, and I know you're going to be voting on that tonight. But I also would like for the township to consider giving more money to the clerk's office for elections, given all these complications and all the work, logistical work and the extra voting. I think the clerk's office probably should have more staff. And if I understand this, you have till the 25th to send to the Secretary of State your voting plan, Heather, if we do it in-house, the township. So you have to do all those logistics, right, so I just want to say, I've been talking with Heather, oh my God, it's so infinitely complex voting, and there's so many questions, but I'm glad we decided to have greater access, and I feel like we really have good infrastructure, public service infrastructure in the county, but also here, so that people's voices can be heard at the polling place. So I want to thank everyone for that.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Hearing none, then we're going to go to old business and continue with the conversation with Ed from the county clerk's office. He's a director of elections, and the agreement for the election services with the Washtenaw County for the early voting in Ypsilanti Township. So, Debbie, you were next.
So first I want to say thank you for coming. The overview on how we got here is very helpful because I was not aware of a survey. I wasn't aware of conversations being taken place. And I think that might have helped a little bit if we'd had more knowledge of what was coming through. And I sit on the township's election commission, so, or committee, or whatever we want to call that. So that's a little concerning to me. And I don't know, mine might be a little bit more like Trustee Hunter's, so there may be questions in here, but some of it is just clarifications I want to make, and then there's other concerns that I have about that. So again, thank you, I appreciate that. When I think about county elections, I think about the county as being checks and balances for local elections. So we're kind of handling what we do at the local level. There's a lot that you do for like the candidacy and things like that. And then when we finish up with whatever we're doing, and maybe it doesn't go this way anymore, like we're submitting things to the county and they're checking back and forth. And so I look at it as kind of a way of protecting the vote and having like two entities looking at things. Is that a wrong way to be thinking about it?
I think that's a solid part of it. The county provides other services that are constitutionally and statutorily required, like ballot production. We receive candidate filings, campaign finance filings. But really what we strive to do in addition to that is to serve as, in some cases, leaders as far as sharing best practices, encouraging clerks to adopt them, and to serve as a sounding board in some cases for ideas that might be, coming from individual municipalities. We're of consult in some ways in addition to those responsibilities.
Okay. And so as I'm listening to the presentations, what it looks like is that, there are some distinct advantages or benefits that you can hear, but then some of them are a contrived benefit that was kind of pushed through the legislature, right? So if the cost savings are only for like a collaborative model with the county, and the legislature doesn't provide for cost savings for like local clerks, they're really pushing people towards collaboration, which maybe that's what they do. And in most cases, I support like the idea of people working together, but then as Trustee Hunter said, there is a lot of concern about voting and this, making sure that everything is fair and that it's done right and that it's consistent just in general. And usually some of that comfort level happens closer to where you are. The bigger you get, the more suspect things are. So we're kind of doing something in the wrong way. We're taking a local level of government that has a proven track record of doing their elections, has a very experienced staff. So there's a lot that's been done here that I would call like just the infrastructure of voting and the infrastructure of just the humans. So I think our clerk quoted to us that there's like 30 years of experience in our clerk's office. That's a really big deal. I mean, it looks like almost when we're sounding like we're going to do this, but we're going to rely heavily on like the infrastructure that we've put in place, because typically Washtenaw County is not running like the day-to-day kind of local level. Like you guys don't run like a local level type of election in any place, do you?
No, we don't. This is the first time in Michigan that this sort of arrangement is possible, and it's necessitated, or at least been provided as a means to alleviate some of the administrative and financial burden on individual cities and townships and their clerks and staff.
But they're alleviating the financial burden because of the financial, like if they didn't offer the financial incentives to push people to all do stuff together, it probably wouldn't save us anything more. Is that fair to say? Like the grant money that we can apply for, I mean, the county wasn't going to hand us money to help us with elections if the legislator didn't push it that way, right?
If I understand the question, so the legislature's budget allocation is indeed for incentivization. It's a $30 million sum. What's not known, I guess, at this point, is what amount of funding the township or the other townships and cities and township will receive outside of that county coordinated or municipal coordinated agreement. It's not clear at this point. There is a requirement moving forward that elections be funded, but this is in the constitutional amendment, that the legislature make allocations for election administration in ways that they have never done before, but it is left very open-ended and essentially up to the legislature to determine funding levels. And right now we only know what the 2024 budget will be and are acting in accordance.
But, you know, like municipalities, as they're, like, really how things are paid is really the big deal, right? So often, again, this election is always going to come back to the local level. So if the legislature wants to give some money, 30 million, they want to do it, that's great now. But at some point in time, somebody else, a new legislature may decide, yeah, we're going to take that out of that. And then again, it's always going to be really the burden on us to make sure that we can pay for it. So that makes me concerned, because we get into contracts, we're currently in some contracts where we can't get good information about what we're paying for, and then ultimately we're still responsible for it. So it's hard for me to understand, because they could have decided in another way. The legislature could have said, we're going to help support the local municipalities, and they, you know, that's not your problem. I'm just saying it could have been done another way. They're kind of forcing us into something that's new frontier, that we're not sure, like theoretically and some of that stuff. And again, this isn't about you. You're trying to do the best you can given what's been out there. But when I think about the local election, again, we have managed tough elections during COVID. Like a lot has been put on clerks and voting in the last, you know, several years, where they had to get in there and they had to figure things out. And every time our clerk's office did that, and they did that under pressure in a really good way. And so when we talk about something new that nobody knows, and it's just hard to hand that over to somebody, because I'm thinking collaboration's good, but it's always good to know kind of what you're doing so that you can make a better decision when you're at the table trying to advocate what it is. Because already a lot is what we're doing. We're talking about 9 days of early voting that our clerks, like, they've been doing that process of voting. And so I know that people can, you know, like, make my comments to be about, you know, I am skeptical of that. And part of it is the time frame that it has taken, where we could have been being given information, and like I didn't hear a survey, I didn't look about. It's just hard, because right now we're like under the pressure to make a decision. And so I'm looking at my notes. So again, it's not really a question. I'm just trying to clarify and understand what is happening here. And again, I hear people saying, you know, there's a big cost savings. We don't know that. I mean, I'm having numbers that are being projected out to us. It's going to cost us 10 to 20,000. We don't know that. So even when we subtract that and we get to 15, like, it's ballpark numbers we're hearing. And again, I appreciate your comment, Trustee Hunter, about, is $15,000 too much for us to pay to ensure election integrity that's performed at the local level with what people are kind of used to? Because we would be stepping out for this one particular thing. I don't know. That's a very good question. And I think there is a lot of mistrust. So when we start to change too much, like, you're going to do something that's different and it's good and it's great for voters, and so I'm grateful for all of that. But when you start to step out, there's so many things that can go sideways, and adding collaboration on top of it could make it even more problematic, potentially, even though there's stuff at the local level that our clerks have figured out on several occasions. And we have invested in machines. We've invested in machines to make that change in what we're doing. Again, we've kept up with the investment. Anytime the clerks come to us and said, we need this to make this work, the board has said, we're going to do it. But I'm looking at, like, what would be checks and balances. I'm looking at something that's new. I'm looking at, we're bringing something to the table that is, like, our people, right? Like, we're going to rely on us for the people, so that it's just a weird way to configure it. And it sounds like the biggest thing is this idea that it's incentivized by the legislature when they could have offered local government more money to help them with the process too. I don't know how they made that decision. So that part is concerning to me there. And then I do hear the part about Now, the place where I do think that it would be really super helpful for there to be collaboration and cooperation where the county could serve a role that it already has kind of served is this idea of how we communicate what's happening, where people can vote, what the process is. So I agree, Clerk Rowe, that having a consistent message and what that looks like at the county level would be really important. But that also seems to me like the nature of the checks and balances that the county clerk's office would already maybe be at the table from other things that we've done as far as here's what goes. So that's my comments of this. Oh, so then it also said like, because I was taking notes, that that we're planning on learning a lot. We're in a place where we've never been. That's still concerning because we're like, well, and forgive me because I'm a teacher who went through a consolidation process where I was consistently and constantly told, yeah, we're building the plane as we fly. Yeah, that's not a good way for things to go. So I'm hearing kind of the same thing, that this is like, okay, well, we're going to build it as we go. And I'm feeling like the complexity of building it when we go, when we're adding all this together, is going to be harder than if the local clerks with 30 years of experience who've already worked through tough things through COVID, we have our new equipment, that maybe the first thing to do would have been to just figure out, okay, well, what does this mean? And then maybe we need to collaborate, or maybe it didn't. Like at this point, we don't even know whether that's going to be necessary. I've heard someone say that it's going to give one more polling location. So that is a benefit, to have one more place where someone could vote. But then it also creates, like, that could be a creation of more that makes people concerned about the integrity of the election itself. So what people don't understand makes it hard to be as secure in what they need. So I appreciate the work you're doing at the county level, so don't make it sound like that. I appreciate the work that, because these days everything gets misconstrued. Oh, Debbie Souls, that's not the case. So I want to be as clear with my words as possible that it's not about whether I think, our clerk, or I have full faith in the expertise of what our clerk and our clerk's office has done and their ability to handle this particular challenge that was voted through the voters for a good reason, to make sure there's accessibility and all of that. So I'm not saying anything against that. I'm worried about all the unknowns and what that could mean when we're handing it over.
Thank you.
I just want to defer to Heather because I trust her too. Actually,
Just your name, Karen.
My name is Karen Holman, live in the township. I would like to hear Heather, because she's thought about elections and she knows more than all of us, except for maybe, I don't know, there's maybe other election administrators here. I would like to hear Heather's opinion about, pros and cons on either side and complications, because we may be, I just want to hear what Heather has to say about this proposal.
Well, yeah, I have just a couple questions. And what, the state also passed a law that said if the state legislature approves a bill that has costs associated to it, they're supposed to fund that as additional, it's unfunded mandate is what it was. And they never do that, like they're supposed to. In this instance, if you as a county clerk can get reimbursed, can't local government get reimbursed as well?
Right now, the state is accepting grant applications and awarding funding based on the legislature's stated intent that they incentivize coordinated agreements. It does leave it quite broad, and the Secretary of State's Office and Bureau of Elections have some degree of latitude to determine levels of funding. We are not privy to what the formula might be at this point. We do know that we've made a grant application based on what we expect the needs to be for the county if the 23 units were to enter into this agreement. We expect to receive a significant portion of that, but I do not know what the township would receive going independently.
Or the city of Ann Arbor.
Correct.
They don't know that yet.
No.
That's
Grant awards nor funding levels have not been decided.
determined. There's site supervisors, there's coordinator, and I think 3 positions. But the site supervisor is a participating municipal clerk or a member of the county clerk staff who shall act as supervisor, right, for each day of the early voting?
Correct, yeah. And what the site supervisors will do is answer questions raised by the poll workers or assist with, equipment problems or other technical, assistance, or if there's a problem with a line, for instance, suggesting to poll workers how it be resolved. Ultimately, on Election Day, just as at the early vote site, poll workers have the authority to maintain order and administer the election in accordance with law, and that wouldn't change. The site supervisor is a designated person to just kind of assist as a bridge between the county, or if the township were to go independently, the township clerk's office and the individual early vote site.
It says that also that the county clerk may appoint a different participating municipal clerk or member of the county clerk staff to act as supervisor that day. Because this is 9 days straight, and it is, I was clerk for 16 years previously, so I am familiar. Of course, there's a lot of changes with everything, but I am just trying to understand how you have voting from 9 to 5 for 9 days. And the agreement says you might have it outside those hours as well. So can you have different poll workers? Can you split shifts? Do you still have that kind of capability? Or do you have to have the same poll workers for 9 days straight?
Inevitably, it will be a different, and no matter what the arrangement is, whether it's just the township or whether it's a county or a municipal coordinated agreement, there will be different poll workers assigned. We're going to strive very hard to, find
consistent.
a group that will work all 9 days. Mm-hmm. But we know, based on the real world lives of folks that are going to be serving as poll workers, that that's going to be impossible in any case. So it is possible to split shifts. We are not anticipating providing those opportunities.
Well, not 9 to 5.
Yeah.
I think that's different than like on
Yes.
election day and stuff like that.
Yeah,
And,
we want it to be as consistent as possible, and our goal is to find groups that we can appoint for the entire duration, but we know that we'll have to make arrangements based on individual scheduling that,
Right.
that folks have.
Right, and in the budget and cost sharing, and you don't look at who the people are, you have to just look at what the agreement says. And it says that the estimated early voting budget is proposed as follows, and it's between 145,000 high and 102,000 low for the smaller elections, and that's going to be divided. But it does go on to say that this budget may be amended as deemed necessary by the county clerk. It doesn't say in collaboration with the local, it doesn't.
Yeah, and that's true. In the event that we have to increase poll worker rates of pay, for instance, based on our ability to recruit individuals, or if we decided that there was some need to purchase additional equipment that was necessary to implement early voting, that is left as a possibility, and will have to remain so that we do have the potential to amend. I can tell you, we're not expecting to make any significant amendments.
Yeah, of course.
What the budget is in front of you is expected to hold for the duration of the first term.
Yeah, but you can't guarantee it unless that was written in the contract.
Sure, yes, yeah.
So, and I understand why it's written that way, don't get me wrong. And just from being a local, I prefer local control and accountability, especially for elections and the integrity of that process. We have Angie Robinson is also, our election specialist for the township. And I just trust our staff You know, because maybe it's because we do know them and we know they go to great lengths to accommodate our voters and assist in any way. It's that level of personal service in the county, nothing, you know, you don't do local clerk work and you don't do day-to-day stuff like our local government does. And I'm afraid of losing that special attention to our residents that we would have by having someone else being in charge of it. Because it's not always going to be you, it's not always going to be Larry. And most contracts that we've gotten into recently with the county have changed. That's more frequently, we tried to give money for barrier busters just recently, and you've had a communication. We hand-delivered a check to the county, and it hasn't been cashed for barrier busters because they want to change the agreement that we all agreed to. So I'm just a little worried about that lack of not having control of agreements, because you can say you'll do it in participation and communication with the clerk, but at the end of the day, I think you have control.
Can't speak to other contracts, have nothing to do with barrier busters, and I will say, you know, as I responded earlier to Trustee Hunter, I'm not here to convince you that this is the right path for Ypsilanti Township. I've been asked to come here and answer questions related to the agreement. I will also say that the agreement, as you know, has the ability to be modified, but it can also be withdrawn from by either party, subject to the terms. You know, something to consider for the township is to see how it goes during February, the presidential primary, and withdraw from it if you find that the service that you're being provided doesn't meet what you're hoping or that you think can be provided independently. I'd say that there's relatively low risk there, from my perspective, I guess, if I were looking at it that way. I do, you know, again, have to say that the decision whether to enter into it or not is sort of final for the first term of the contract or the agreement, I should say, ending in 2025. But again, you know, there is the opportunity for the township to withdraw. I think it's been pointed out also that the township already possesses equipment that could potentially be used for early voting. That will remain the case. You're going to continue to own that equipment. It would be, you know, a matter of withdrawing and creating a new plan that allocates equipment, perhaps the equipment that you've already got, and sets aside an early vote site and hours and location. And, you know, the township could continue on from there. So, you know, just to, I guess, provide some opportunity to meet somewhere that I know, or at least I think, the clerk would like to meet in the middle somewhere. That's an option. But again, you know, I am not here to convince you to do this. And I think, you know, the discussion that you are all having is one that's very productive and probably aimed, you know, more internally or should be with the township clerk's office and not necessarily the county in some cases. But yeah, you know, I really do think that this is going to work very well for all of the municipalities that do participate within it. I can say with certainty that we are allocating at the county as much of our time, resources, and expertise as we are able. And I have every bit of belief that this will be successful. But I understand the concerns that you are all bringing. And I think, you know, again, I'm happy to answer specific questions related to the agreement, but I think that what you are all bringing is a bit of philosophical, you know, approaches to election administration. And again, I really don't want to give the impression that I'm here to convince you to do this when it is really an internal matter for discussion.
Well, and this is just a first opportunity to discuss it. So
understand that too.
And we appreciate it.
I do also want to make the point too that you know, over the summer and prior to, we had been encouraging municipalities to be discussing this very thing. And you know, I regret that it's only this meeting, as it sounds, that some of these questions are coming up and being answered by me in my office. But we've been trying very much to encourage those conversations up to this point so that there were no, late discussions and issues.
The rules just came out, though, didn't they? I mean, they just provided the rules. The state just provided and it's really not philosophical. It's also about budgeting, because the one thing that everyone talks about is, 10, 15,000 savings, but in the very document, it doesn't guarantee that that's a cost that's going to be before you. And you can't do that.
What we can assure is that the cost will certainly be less than if the township were to administer early voting on its own. That we can absolutely commit to. That's true.
I don't even know what that statement means, because I don't even know what it costs for us to administer it. We have the tabulators here.
I do agree that, Clerk Gerald Rowe should probably answer that question as to what calculations you've made. Now, I can say that there are some minimums. You have to have a minimum of 3 poll workers present during each of those 9 days of required early voting. And you have to open and close, so you're probably talking again about 10 hours per day. And there is a cost to that. The absolute minimum labor cost is those poll worker hours. Whether or not there might be deputy overtime or other administrative costs, I think is a question that the township clerk's office would need to address and come up with a solid estimate for you all. But there are minimums that we can be assured of. What we calculated at the county is that a team of 4 poll workers, because you don't want to appoint just 3 to an early vote site, just like you don't want to appoint just 3 to an election day voting precinct. Someone calls off. You need to allow for breaks, et cetera. You appoint 4, and you pay them, let's say, $16 an hour. That's what we calculated. And you pay them for 10 days without any additional overhead. And essentially that plus the 2 poll workers that would be, or 3, that would be required to close voting equipment at 8 p.m. on that Tuesday. You come up with $6,800. That is the bare bones absolute minimum. And what we expect is that jurisdictions along the size of, those that are 1, 2 precincts could probably pay that amount. I think it would be, I haven't calculated it myself because I'm not in that position, but I would estimate or assume that the estimate would be significantly more than that for a township of this size.
Mm-hmm. In the plan that you have submitted, it says 10 poll workers every day. Maybe I'm reading it wrong. It's a number of election inspectors at the site is 10.
Correct, yes.
Not 3.
Correct, yes.
And you said maybe 4 or 5, but in the plan it says 10.
Right, yeah, what I'm saying is the absolute minimum that the township could feasibly
do it with
without any,
That's required, probably?
And it would be irresponsible, I suppose, to do it with that few resources, given that you will know that turnout will dictate that you need more poll workers than that very minimum. Mm-hmm. So what we're expecting in the plan, yes, is, somewhere in the average of 10 poll workers per early vote site.
Yeah, that's what's budgeted, I'm assuming, is 10.
Yes.
And and I thought I heard you say you have to have Democrats and Republicans in an equal.
You do, just like Election Day.
Just like a polling location that we do. I have other questions, but it's just more, and a lot of it is philosophical. We're local government, and the accountability is at the local level, not at the county level. But and I think it is good government. I think local government is good governance, and which is why we all run for office. And I just really appreciate and trust the people that we have here, that actually administer it. And
yeah, I have a deep respect for the Ypsilanti Township Clerk's Office, who does a fantastic job of administering elections. I know that the challenges that Ypsilanti Township Clerk's Office, along with every other municipality next year, are going to be significantly greater than those that they have experienced in the past. We have not discussed the other, areas of proposal 2 that will have impact on what the clerk's office is doing. The likely continuance and probably increase in utilization of absentee voting that will, that we saw dramatic increases in 2020. That's not going away. And what we are doing now in Michigan is essentially implementing, 3 methods of voting to the fullest extent possible. And, other states don't do this. You have early voting, but you don't have the same level of absentee voting, or you have absentee voting or strictly vote by mail, like Oregon, for instance, and you don't have election day voting precincts.
Right.
Michigan is now unique in that we are offering early voting for 9 full days that will require significant administrative attention, as well as absentee voting for no reason, and in fact, the ability to request an absentee ballot into perpetuity and be sent one with that single request. And you can vote on election day just the same way that you've always been able to between the hours of 7 a.m. and 8 p.m. There's a lot to do, and we know, that those burdens are going to be significant, which again, is part of the general philosophy that the county has to offer support and partnership where possible, and again, especially when there's a request for that assistance from a unit.
And I think it's going to be confusing to people because early voting is where you come in and you actually you get a ballot and you put it in and it's tabulated.
Correct.
That day for 9 days.
Correct. Yes. Yeah, you're essentially running election day
and then
10 times.
How it's how it's closed out, I don't understand that, and I can read about it later, but that and then absentee voting, everyone's getting their application and filling it out and turning it in, and then can they come in and still vote in person 9 days prior if they filled out the application for the absentee?
Yes, and in fact, going forward, it'll be possible for absentee voters, those that have received their absentee ballot, to bring it to the early vote site and tabulate it, and also to bring it on election day to their voting precinct and tabulate their absentee ballot.
And so would that be in the early 9-day voting, or would that be a separate voting device for the clerk's office?
No, that would be at the early vote site and using the same equipment that's there, and that's by law.
Well, that makes more sense, and because people who vote absentee don't trust the absentee process. They think you open it up. They think we look at it, and there's just zero truth in Ypsilanti Township, at least, to that. But they always want to put it in,
right.
And this will give that opportunity. And that's, again, about the distrust and stuff that people have in the process. So early voting might be a challenge, but it might end up being a good thing for the voters, really.
Oh, yeah, I'm 100% agreement that early voting is absolutely, first, it's at this point, and I think it's evidenced by the results much in favor of Proposal 2 last year. Voters are very in favor of this and have come to expect it. They know that other states have this as an option as well. They don't understand why we don't, and we've been receiving those questions for years. And I do think that early voting is an exciting development, and we're in a position where voters have so much enhanced access and opportunities to vote, and that's a great thing.
And the Township Civic Center, this isn't handicap accessible. That would be, at least here in this boardroom.
It is.
You think it is?
I'll wait. Yes, it is. We already use it as a voting site. And
Oh, I know.
Precinct, or voting stations up there, which are ADA accessible.
Yeah.
Down here, it's not, but up there it is.
We do have plans on redoing this to help out with the voting site because a couple of people have fallen. But thank you so much, Ed, for the
Madam Chair, if everyone's
comment.
done, I would just like to add, Ed, thank you so much for being here tonight. I really appreciate your support today and always. My opinions on this, I think I shared pretty lengthy to the extent of last meeting, but I am in favor of collaboration with the county clerk's office. Having their support and their partnership seems like a great benefit, not only to myself, but to our residents with voting. It's a fiscally responsible idea, which is something that we're statutorily required to do, is to be fiscally responsible. This in no way is the county taking over like the clerk's obligations to oversee election day and all of that. So I want to just dispel that mistruth. That is not true. The county is not taking over our elections. This is required by state too. So like, I'm with you, Debbie, like it feels like we're building the plane I feel like last November, which is again less than a year ago, or not even a year ago, we're not even to a whole year of when our state decided to vote on this. We had some proposal language that was voted on that later needed to be clarified by the state legislature, and that wasn't finalized by the governor until late July. So the whole time it's felt like, well, are we kind of doing this sort of thing? And like, there were a couple like surveys like in the spring, and I think the survey was literally 3 questions of, what do you think you might want to do once they kind of sort of figure out stuff? And then the second one was a little more detailed, asking, you know, what do you foresee for yourself? And I believe, I don't have the verbatim part of it, but I think I said, I want to do anything that our clerk's office can do to be a good partner and to help advocate for our residents to make sure that people have access to voting. Like, I'd have to ask Ed for that, but I'm pretty sure I said something around that. So it wasn't an intention of like hiding anything from anyone on this board. It's truly a matter of these things are changing and we're building them and figuring them out as we go. And I know that makes everyone uncomfortable. It makes me uncomfortable, right? Like, it's a lot of logistics to get right and to not screw up, because elections are very important, and it means so much to make sure that you understand the new language and the new process and all of that. And I would just say that I would argue that myself and 22 other clerks in this county believe this is the right way to go. Every person in my office believes this is the right way to go. And it really just helps generate this, you know, space where we can collaborate and learn from one another as we're building these sites. I thought that our board would be exceptionally happy that this could be a site here at our Civic Center for early voting, as well as the second site. I would say too that in our budget, our draft budget, which you guys all have a copy of, and Brenda and she reviewed it, but there's an extra line item in there for early voting that we added in. Sorry, I'm just trying to read my chicken scratch here. Having access to the other voting precinct would be great. Our building here, if anyone has concerns about like the equipment that needs to stay here, I am the most comfortable with our equipment staying here, like, or at another county-owned facility. I'm not at all in favor of like having a voting site where it's not either a municipality that owns the facility or the county. And I feel very secure about, even if I wasn't the site supervisor, I would still be here every day to just like help close up at the end of the night and make sure everything's done right and that votes are suspended. And if anything comes up, I know that I can reach out to Ed or Trish or anyone at the county clerk's office for assistance. And I know that Lisa and Angie also feel the same way. We call them all the time for assistance. And I agree with you, Brenda, that there is exceptional service, I think, here at the county or at the township clerk's office. And that's not going to change. And I would say that we even have more of a hand in how that comes across to voters because we're here. We're here at our Civic Center welcoming people in and making sure that they're still getting the same level of treatment. Because I'm just going to tell you guys, you know me well enough to know that if they weren't, I would immediately be on the phone with Ed and we would just have to address the situation. That being said, leads me to think about our poll workers. We are going to be hand in hand helping the county build their list of poll workers. And the other thing about that is that a lot of our poll workers like to work close to home, right? If you're a poll worker in Ypsilanti Township, you don't really want to drive out to Chelsea or Dexter to work. So I would beg to, bet that probably the majority of poll workers here at the Freight House and other local sites will probably be some of the very same faces that have served our precincts for decades. And just lastly, I know you guys are sick of hearing me say it, but I can't overstate it enough. The entire clerk's office here, with over 30 years of election experience and 22 other clerks in the state, plus myself, see this as the best way forward. And I understand there's worry and concern about how it's going to look. We have an option to leave if we need to, which is not always true with our other county agreements. This does provide for that. And I hope that the board here will consider everything that Ed has said tonight, as well as myself, and take into consideration the clerk's office staff. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there? Thank you, Heather. I'm sorry.
Yeah, if I could. Okay. When the voters of Michigan voted for early voting, I'm pretty sure that the voters of Michigan did not know that that was also going to take away or change or alter. Try and make sure I don't use the word misinformation because I don't want that coming up again. The way that local elections are done in any aspect. I'm not sure if the voters of Michigan understood that. I'm also not sure if the 57,000 voters or so in Ypsilanti Township may have understood that, more or less, right? I'm not sure if they really understood. So when we're looking at that, we also have to look at, does every voting resident of Ypsilanti Township understands that early voting will be done by the county, and I guess election day voting will be done by the township? Does every voter of Ypsilanti Township understand that? I'm not sure. Maybe that's a question the clerk can answer. But meanwhile, between time, I also have some technical questions. I heard Ed say that the ballots from early voting would be kept in a secure location here inside of Ypsilanti Township. I'm assuming that's where they're going to be kept. So, and that they have a seal that would be put onto the tabulator machines in order to seal and say that that particular batch, right, is not only not, safe, but also has not been tampered with. So my question is a question that happened in 2015 inside the city of Detroit elections, which I was there. I took part in that election particularly, and a question came up about a broken seal. That went all the way to the Michigan Attorney General at that time. Tom Barrow took that case all the way to the Michigan Attorney General about broken seals on tabulators. I'm hoping that there has been some type of clarification that will happen if for some reason the tabulator seal is broken while ballots are sitting for 8 days. I'm not sure, but I do know that that's something that needs to be discussed in this township. Meanwhile, between time, there's one more question or really thought process. I heard it was said that not many other states and kind of other states don't have or have early voting and absentee voting. Well, okay. Wayne County has done early voting since at least 2015, is not before. So it has been done at least there. And my other question is there literally no other state that has early voting and absentee voting? That would be a question to this board may want to check and look at to see if that's actually true. And if so, how is that process followed on a local municipal basis? I'm going to reiterate the law, right? I hear save money, I hear misinformation, but I also hear that the voters of our township voted for positions to do their job. And so that means all of it. And if the state legislature decided to make early voting a law, that doesn't change the authority in regards to the local municipality doing their job. It just means they have to work around and get it done. So I hope that the board would really consider all of this in their decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Sir?
My name is Doug Carpenter. I live in the township in Precinct 1. And I would like to urge the trustees to approve the agreement for election services. It sounds like a lot of the concerns that I've heard tonight don't really relate to the agreement so much as to the changes that the state has implemented, the voters have implemented, and then the follow-on legislation. a lot will change. Like, it's going to be a new experience for election administrators, for the voters. It's not going to be like it was in the past. The 9 early days of voting are going to be a big change. Let's see. Yeah, so many things will be different whether or not you approve this agreement with the county. It doesn't sound to me like this is turning the election over to the county. It seems like, the proposal and the legislation has created big challenges for municipal clerks. This agreement seems like a way to help, the county can help all the municipal clerks within the county. And I just urge you to not only listen to your clerk, but just approve the agreement. It sounds like it's a great plan to me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carpenter. Any other comments? Trustee Newman?
Just one quick question. So if I understand it, we would have to be in this agreement until 2025. Did I read anywhere that if the county chose to get out of the agreement, they could get out at any time, or?
The withdrawal terms are set by law and are inflexible. What either party, any party, can withdraw from the agreement with 30 days written notice. But during or prior to an election that the agreement would affect, it is not possible to withdraw from the agreement for 150 days prior. So what that means, practically speaking, for next year is that either party, the township or the county, could withdraw. And now I left my notes over there. I believe it's June 7th, 2024. And after that date, it would not be possible for the county or the township to withdraw until following the November 2024 general election. And if there were to be a special election that affected Ypsilanti Township or any of the other parties, the next possible election date, which would be May of 2025, it wouldn't be possible to withdraw 150 days prior to that. So there's a 30-day window for withdrawal that is also affected by that 150-day threshold prior to election dates. But practically speaking, we don't typically see special elections in May every time. It does seem to me possible, again, that the withdrawal windows are essentially June 7th, and then subsequently, after the November election is certified, if any party wanted to withdraw heading into the 2025 cycle, which there are no regular elections within. I will also point out that early voting is only a requirement during state and federal elections. Okay. So, for instance, if the township joined this agreement and then subsequently withdrew in, let's say, 2025, the beginning of the year, it would not be required to implement early voting until the next general cycle in 2026. It could and would probably be encouraged by several parties, including voters probably, to offer it during special elections, but it wouldn't be required. And I can say again, and I made this commitment already, but I will reaffirm it. The county clerk and I are very sincere about our interests in providing early voting services into the future, and have no expectation that we would be withdrawing from this agreement through 2025, and it's very unlikely that that would happen beyond it as well. But what I'm trying to say is there's an ample window and runway if the township were to join and then subsequently withdraw for it to create its own and implement its own early voting plan for subsequent elections after the 2024 calendar.
Just to add to that, so if we did join and go through February and it's not what we expected, we have time to withdraw from the agreement before it would affect the August or November elections of that year. However, if we don't join, there is no option to join again until after 2025.
I wonder, and it's just for state and federal, but not local.
That's the requirement. The agreement will be for all elections, though. So that would include special elections. We would open an early vote site that would serve voters during, for instance, the May special election date next year, if there were to happen to be one.
And the second voting site for Ypsilanti Township voters would be on Washtenaw in Ann Arbor, is that correct?
The Learning and Resource
Pittsfield?
Center at Hogback and Washtenaw, which is actually in Pittsfield Township, just on the northeast corner there.
Okay, and the communication that you put out, you will provide to everyone, right, as far as?
As far as options, like
Yeah.
communication to voters, yes.
Just to communicate whatever you come up with for, I read about video, you have videos, you do all kinds of things that we probably should look into doing, just to help voters, because it is confusing. Absentees, same day, day of, it is confusing. And I saw the notice from the Ann Arbor League of Voters for Ann Arbor and Ypsi City, and that confused me. And I know, I was reading and understanding that it was for early vote. It's just really, when you take it outside your municipality, I think it gets very confusing. I'm just going to
Yeah, I
say
mean,
that.
one thing that we haven't really touched on is the interest, to the extent that the county's got interest in this, it is in synthesizing or consistency in creating information to share with voters.
Right.
The fewer asterisks we have to put on communications, the better, for the purpose of, a clear and consistent communication that voters will understand. It is going to be difficult to understand for the first little while for any voter the different response or the different options that they've got. Early voting, again, just being one component of new things, new opportunities that voters have. So the more consistent that we can be in outreach, the better. And yeah, this plan, to the extent that it benefits the county, it makes it more simple, I guess, for us to be able to communicate with voters about early voting options.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions or comments? All right. So was this discussion, or do we?
No, we didn't do a motion.
Yeah.
Do you want to go back to the top, or?
Do you want,
Let's do it now.
or do we want to go to the top of the agenda again?
Thank you, Ed.
Ed, you were awesome. Thank you so much for all
Enjoy your
that.
evening.
You're very welcome. Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
I appreciate your approach very, very, very much. So on the consent agenda, we have minutes of the August 15th work section and regular meeting that was tabled at the last meeting. So a motion
To untable?
Motion by Rowe, support by Eldridge to remove this from table. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now it's properly before us. Questions or comments in regards to the minutes?
Madam Chair, I just wanted to briefly say that thank you, Trustee Swanson. You're the one person that I heard feedback from about the meeting minutes. What I heard from our last board meeting is that we didn't like the idea of doing motions and supports alone, that it wasn't enough information. And I sort of see that as option one. Option two is what we have been doing and have done historically since I've been on the board since 2016, which is motion, support, votes, and a general synopsis of what occurred. I think there was some concern that our office staff synopsis wasn't quite what we wanted it to be, and so that would have been like option B. And option C is having essentially verbatim minutes, which were also included in the packet. So I wanted to share my thought process on that. It is not my preferred method or preferred way to do minutes, nor is it the general recommendation of like best practices. But just hearing that the board wanted more verbatim minutes, our office wanted to, do as the will of the board was.
Comments on?
Yeah, I have a comment. After looking at the minutes, I would like to have it go back and be proofread to where it could reflect, I think, what really took place, because there were some sections I read that didn't really make any sense. And that's no indirect anything, but it's just that, it's not representative of what, we are looking to put out. I would propose to take it back and recorrect it.
Yeah, Madam Chair, if I may, the thing is that when you do verbatim minutes, you're getting what we say. And if I just verbatimed what I have said in the last 5 minutes, it's not going to quite make sense the way it does in conversation. And I am happy to proofread. It's just a matter of, do we want the clerk's office to give the verbatim of what happened, or do you want us to change and synopsis it? Like, do you want to go with option A, B, or C? And I'm happy to do any of them. I explained at the last board meeting, our office is more than happy to make any changes that are asked of us. The only person that provided any feedback for us was Trustee Swanson, and again, thank you for doing that. So I just need clear direction from the board on what option we'd like to go with, and our board is again happy to make those changes for us.
So I understand the options that are being offered or stated as choices. The one that doesn't make sense to me is the verbatim. So are we saying that what is in the packet right now that Trustee Newman has expressed concerns over, and we've had at least one resident express concerns and ask questions about what it is? Because verbatim, this doesn't look like verbatim to me, but maybe this is just the terminology and understanding what we mean by that. This looks like AI, as somebody said, AI-generated minutes, which is not going to demonstrate what is verbatim. So like right there, me changing that, like a verbatim is going to say like what, it's going to have like even pauses and stuff, but like this is, many of it is like, it has me saying at one point cool over like present or something. I mean, that's just not even close. So I'd have to understand a little more about what option 3 verbatim would mean, because right now what we have to consider as verbatim minutes is actually AI generated or voice, however it's done. I don't know what the process is, but even if somebody was to put like a text open and start letting it listen, it's going to pick up stuff that's just not, has any idea what was said. So if you could clarify that, that'd be helpful.
Yeah, so you were correct, and you guys all have a packet of, I think, the full minutes, and you can imagine that if a staff person was to type all of that, it would probably take several days to do so. And we're in the middle of an election, and it doesn't seem like the wisest choice and use of our time when we have options such as AI-generated things, like the transcription piece. So if you guys want verbatim, I'm happy to take the AI and then go through and, correct things and take out stuff. But again, or to make it make sense, like the ums and ands, and I understand that, but like, if we say things that we don't like that we said, we still said it, and so it still has to go in the verbatim. So if it's a matter of formatting and, cleaning up this is or that, it's like little text bits, I can understand that direction and move forward with it. But I don't know if that answered your question, Debbie.
It does. I'm just clarifying because I would hate for us to be considering option 3 and then think this is what would be the ultimate outcome, because this isn't a verbatim minute. I do understand the part that you're saying that you can't clean up later something that you said. If you said it, you said it. I get that part. But I would not want anybody, including anybody who's attending the meeting, to think that what's in the packet right now is a verbatim set of minutes, because it's not verbatim. They're inaccurate.
And I think I thought that we were saying like transcript on it. I don't know that actually ended up staying on there, but.
It does, it says transcript.
And so it is a transcript of what happened, but I hear you, it's not great. I am not a fan of option 3 either. I'm just trying to figure out what the will of the board is and to have our work reflect accordingly.
3, though, is not this. Option 3, so option 4, I guess, would be what's in here, and option 4 would be AI-generated transcript.
Sure. And so would option...
That's what I'm thinking I'm hearing concern about from a resident and from board members.
Understood. Then I would clarify exactly if you guys could share, if verbatim is what you want, what does that look like to you? I know that in the past we've sent out like audios for verbatim minutes if necessary. I haven't been the clerk when we've done that, and again, also verbatim minutes are not the recommended practice from, and I shared that too, and I understand motions and adjournments can feel restrictive and like not share the spirit of what happened at the meeting. It just feels very like, I feel very caught in the middle of like, okay, we don't want it this way, and we don't like our synopsis. So do we want full verbatim minutes? And my solution to that was trying to be, responsible with our time management in the office and provide the AI.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Hunter?
Thank you. I'll just say, Clerk Rowe, I understand the predicament of the situation. I know that the verbatim minutes, especially in something as robust as our conversation in question here, would be an exorbitant amount of time spent on capturing all of that and having to dust that all off. I think we all can understand that and appreciate that situation and wanting to just kind of get something in record as efficiently as possible. That being said, AI is not perfect. I think we're all seeing that clearly. I would be in favor, and I don't know exactly how to push that forward, but I would be in favor, of us saying, having some kind of disclaimer saying these are comments generated by AI, and for a more accurate record of what happened, here is a link to the audio of tonight's meeting. I think if we could come to some kind of agreement on that, I would be fully in favor of that, because I think that'd be a compromise. But open to further discussion. Oh, and one other thing I do want to say is, I did offer feedback, so it wasn't only. I'm
sorry.
No worries. Just wanted to be sure that was clear.
Trustee Hunter, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to overlook your feedback. I'm sure that at some point during this week I did read that and receive it. I apologize. The other thing that this brings up is, I know in the past live streaming videos has come up, like that idea of it. Now that's like a huge, it's more than just like setting up a camera, but I know that other, like the county board and commissions, you can actually click to certain spots in the meeting from their agenda, and that provides great transparency and possibilities for residents to watch the parts that they want, not the minutia of things that we do, but I guess that could be like option 5 too.
I read the minutes and could not understand what was presented, especially when it came to our budget. And I asked Giovanna to try to help me correct them, but there was so much and there was no clarity. So I don't think our residents know what we really discussed, because you couldn't follow it. And I mean, there were words in here that I know were not used.
I don't disagree with you.
And to not at least edit them a little to take out, like, one of the residents was not Monique, it was Monica. And those are the kind of things that I guess AI does that's not good because they're not here. And I think minutes are permanent records of the history and actions that you've taken as board members. And you've gone and read a lot of them, and I think they're helpful to have. But I really tried to read these. I couldn't read them.
I agree with you, Brenda.
Okay, all right, thank you. So my vote is not to do it this way, because you did not say fun call. We started a meeting with cool cover, Debbie Swanson, Heather Rowe, fun call, Debbie Swanson, all right. And then Brenda Stumbo, hello, everyone. Like, that did not happen.
But it did happen. I mean, the audio picked it up.
But who said it? Maybe, I don't know.
I'm not saying that it should be in there.
Madam Chair.
It should be that way, but.
I wasn't here, I'm sorry. But was that all said prior to when you called that meeting at 7 o'clock?
I don't know.
Because I know sometimes you do say, hey, everybody, how you doing? But when you actually call a meeting at 7 o'clock, that's when you start recording and documenting. Mm-hmm. And I just say, and I read some of it, it's a long thing. I just say, some of it don't make sense. Do we really want to present this to our township and community as official records? That's just my thought, because it's not making sense. And there's just some things, Heather, you can look at it, it doesn't make sense. I hear you when you say it takes a long time for your staff to go through. I understand that. But
I agree with you. I was just trying to do what the board wanted. If the board wanted
the records have to be official.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah, but you see what I'm saying?
Yes, I do.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry for interrupting.
It's just I didn't see it make it sense.
No, that's okay. I apologize.
I want to clarify, though, that is not what was said in some cases. The transcription picked up voice. I don't know, I'm not the scientist here, but it picked something up. Brenda did not say, I'm a robber. That didn't come out of her mouth. So she did say something. It picked up, I probably shouldn't have said that one as the
That
one.
is what
Sorry,
it said in a
Brenda,
minute.
But I mean, so when we say it was said, that's not an accurate statement. However this process goes, picked up sound, it heard that, but no one said some of the stuff that's here. So it's however it's doing, but that to say that it was said, that some of those things were not said, that part.
I was the attorney.
Madam Chair.
Can I offer one more thing before you do stand? The other thing is, so I'm looking at, like, I'm hearing verbatim, agree. AI generated transcript, no. Live streaming doesn't think, I mean, it is helpful. Other people use it, but like Supervisor Stummel said, it's our official business. So I think what got us here is that there were some feelings, I was one of the people feeling this way, that motion and support, and that's just it, is too restrictive, not only in just the people who elected us to serve them, it's too restrictive in helping them understand, or let them see, not understand's the wrong word, let them see the work that's being done. But there's so much that we do where a historical record with a little more to it is so important for, like, if somebody wants to come back and look at something even legally, having something that's there is really important. And I don't know that live streaming is going to work exactly in that way for what my concern is about, like, certain things happening. So I would offer that I think maybe another possibility would be to do option 2, but I think the board needs to have some clarity around what we're expecting or what we're thinking when there's a synopsis. At what point in time would that be added? What should be in a synopsis? Because at any given time, anybody on the board is like, we're not always going to agree or disagree. So when it's left to be subjective as to who's going to decide what the synopsis is, then it gets hard to make sure that the synopsis is going to be sharing exactly, like, with the integrity of what the work is that's being done, I guess is what I'm saying, if that makes sense. And probably AI is going to make me say a whole lot of other stuff if that's the way we're looking at it. But I think the problem is I don't know that we have any kind of policy that I've been able to see that says MTA recommends this. See the that would have to be transcribed? That synopses are provided, and this is how we think about that. So when somebody's making that decision, or we're trying to see if the minutes match that policy or expectation, there's more clarity around what we were expecting to have happen. That's something I would offer, which then requires that some kind of a policy gets created and adopted. That I think should be, if that were the route we go, that it can't singularly be the clerk's office that does that. Maybe they can draft, they can help us. They have a lot that they know what's going to have to happen, but I think we need more variety in making that synopsis decision if we were to choose that route.
Treasurer Eldridge, did you have a?
Just very quickly, I'm okay with the synopsis if it's a little bit fuller, has a little bit more information. I'm not a fan of the AI. For us to adopt this and vote on it as our record tonight, I think is embarrassing for our community. I think you can pick out items in a meeting any board member can ask. I asked at the last meeting for a specific topic to be verbatim. To me, verbatim is somebody with headphones on listening to it and typing it as they hear it, not a machine. Not all technology is good technology. So I would just offer that I'm okay with the synopsis if we can get a little bit more breadth to it. And if a board member would like verbatim on a particular topic, just simply ask. This is not a good representation of our meeting. It's not a good representation of 7 of us, nor of our community, if somebody outside our community were to read this. So that would be my only comments. I can't vote yes for this tonight. I would rather see the synopsis, in all honesty.
So is that a motion? Do we?
Oh,
We have a table. We have.
Is there a resident?
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize.
Just real quick, Monica Cross Williams, 2150 Chevrolet. I heard the comment about video recording, and I had to get up because I know previously that was something that when I was a trustee, I had actually brung a proposal and a resolution in order to do along with audio recording. The board did decide to do audio recording. At that time, that was the will of the board. With audio recording, you can get it to the point that it breaks down sections. I think I mentioned that during the resolution originally. I know some of the board members were not here on this board, but others were. So you can get audio to break down particular sections of audio. This is done very frequently with podcasts, and audio is no different than podcasts. So that's just something to think about. I just want to make sure I put that in there. I know the reason why the video was not adopted is because of the cost of the equipment and also having someone to run that equipment. If I remember it, that was some concerns of the board at that time.
Thank you.
A friendly amendment to retable the minutes of the August 15th?
A motion to table is always in order, yes.
Yeah, but is it? Yeah. I think it's we made the original, right? Yes. Tabled.
All in favor of tabling item A, B, and A and B because it's the same format? The consent agenda, item A, there was a motion to table.
A and B.
Yeah, that's it.
And
Because they're minutes.
yes, and I will
Withdraw the motion.
I will withdraw my motion, and what I heard is that we'd like a synopsis that's a little more robust. And I would appreciate, like, if anyone's interested in working on a policy, because I think that would provide our office great clarity that's probably been long needed for how you decide what goes in and where. It is never by the intention of my office or my staff to misrepresent in a synopsis, just to be clear. So I would make a motion to table items A and B from the consent agenda.
Motion Rowe, support Eldridge. There's no discussion on tabling motion?
Just
Yep.
a quick question. Whatever happened to the old school transcribers or stenographers? Is that out of the question for these meetings? Someone to take the minutes, a human to take the minutes, like they do in court?
Yeah.
Is that?
They do still do that in court, and some communities in our planning commission uses a court stenographer to do their minutes as well. So that hasn't been killed. It's still alive and well. AI hasn't killed that, but that's always, a possibility to do it as well.
Okay.
So, Madam Chair, what are we tabling now? That we're
It's a
going to come
motion.
back to get what?
There's a motion and support to table the minutes as presented tonight, and they'll be brought back to be approved.
Okay, thank you.
Everyone in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item C is statements and checks for October 3rd, 2023.
So move.
Support.
Motion
Peterson.
Rowe, support Peterson to approve statements and checks. Are there questions or comments? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Attorney's report, Mr. Winters?
Madam Chair, as long as I've got it, I'll speak. My voice back. A few updates, some in no particular order, but we do have 3 items on the agenda tonight dealing with the Galt Village demolition. My focus on the Galt Village from the attorney report standpoint is looking beyond the demolition. I wrote several letters to the township board that we do know that we're nearing the end of the demolition part, but that's just probably part 1. Part 2 is going to be the aftermath, as well as going back to court to get our money judgment secured on the property. But also importantly is what do we do during this interim time period? Because again, this is not our property per se, but we do have the legal authority to make sure this site is secure, sanitary, free from blight, etc. And I'm very, very concerned that without the proper perimeter fencing and other security measures, this site could become a dumping ground. And we've seen that in the past where there was a significant amount of blight and dumping that was done in the alley behind the Galt Village. And I think that we've come too far to allow this to go back in terms of that situation. And so I want to have these conversations in the days ahead as to what would a plan look like from a security standpoint in terms of to discourage and prevent a dumping ground or blight being dropped off there. Also, I'm not as skilled as many of you are in regards to the social media issues, but I have seen a number of people engaged in conversations where, quote unquote, they can't wait to start doing donuts on the Galt Village parking lot. And we know what happened at Walmart parking lot when Walmart walked away from the Ellsworth location, had drag racing, people doing donuts and doing all kinds of just behavior that obviously is illegal and dangerous. And so I don't want to have this conversation kind of after the fact. I'd like to get ahead of it. And so I know that the demolition still has another week or two probably to wrap things up, but during that time period, I mentioned Jason Lafayette and Jason Icangeli and Dave Bellers that, and maybe we could have a conversation with Homrich even before they leave the site is there any kind of benefit with them being on site to look at what a secured perimeter fencing would look like in order to maybe reduce the cost since they are already there? Is there certain assets they already have there that we might be able to use? So I want to have that conversation with the board members, of full-time officials, and other administrative staff in the days ahead. Also, I want to also let everybody know that in regards to the Carrie Deary, the cow that was tipped over during the August 24th storm, that the building department has in fact been working hand in glove with the engineer for the owner of the property to make sure there are quote-unquote appropriate wind load calculations in place, that the structure is safe, anchor points are going to be utilized so the cow can be safely uprighted. And the good news is that they worked through all the engineering issues and the structural issues, and the cow is going to once again be facing the moon as opposed to laying on the top of the roof there. So that will happen hopefully sometime in the next week or two. So there is no conspiracy to keep the cow laying there on top of the roof. It's simply a matter of good engineering practices to make sure it can be safely remounted so it will not fall on or have another bad situation occur. On a different note, and I know there are some, well, I'll do this one first. The township has been in court against Lilly Investments Incorporated, as well as the Men Like Us Club, in regards to what has been going on at 3011 East Michigan Avenue. Lilly Investments was sued because they are the owner of 3011. Men Like Us was sued because as a tenant of 3011, things just absolutely spiraled out of control during the last 2 years, resulting in 35 police reports, shootings, assaults, disorderly conduct, taking over neighboring businesses, parking. And I've shared with you some of the videos that were played in court that demonstrate even back in July how an incident at 3:15 in the morning spiraled out of control and ended up with a shooting with the person that got shot being found in the car wash bay. That's all been admitted into the court pursuant to the hearing held on September 22nd before Judge Connors. The township attorney, Dennis McLean and Paul Barnett, they, I think, may have called as many as 16 Washtenaw County Sheriff's deputies who have been called out there at various times during the 2.5 years. And in regards to what happened and why it's a public nuisance and why a padlock order should be issued has all been presented to Judge Connors. Tomorrow afternoon, the defendants have an opportunity to present their case before Judge Connors as to what evidence they're going to present as to why it should not be padlocked or why it should not be declared a public nuisance. And we'll simply await that hearing tomorrow and advise the board as to the outcome. On a different note, but related, once the township filed the lawsuit against Lilly Investments and Men Like Us, Lilly Investments filed a separate lawsuit against Men Like Us that does not involve the township. Their lawsuit dealt with the fact that during the 2.5 years they were open, Men Like Us accumulated arrearages in rent to the tune of $85,000. And so there was a hearing before the 14B court last week, and the tenant has been given 10 days to vacate the premises in regards to the landlord-tenant matter, which brings the date to October 7th, and it remains to be seen as to whether or not that will occur. But that's a separate note, but also relevant given some of the statements that were received during the August 15th township board meeting in regards to the ownership status of that specific building. Again, that lawsuit for back rent doesn't involve the township, but it's relevant in regards to the outcome. On a different note, I know there are people here, they were here earlier that spoke about policing, and I just want at least to share You want to adjourn for a moment, or I should go on? Do you want me to, does the board want to adjourn for a moment, or? Okay. Okay, on a different note, what I was going to say is there are people here that were talking about policing and how other types of options might work better than the traditional, I guess, police departments. And I just want to at least clearly state that there's been a tremendous amount of dialogue during the last several years in Washtenaw County, and it's played out extremely, unfortunately, in Ypsilanti Township in regards to the amount of gun violence. Everybody I know is, that issue is front and center amongst many. Every conversation you have in regards to what's happening in Washtenaw County right now, it comes back to the amount and level of gun violence that we've seen, at least in my lifetime. We're seeing things that I've never seen before. And ironically, I just want to give you a few examples. The city of Ann Arbor recently passed an ordinance that says that there are a number of situations where police officers are forbidden to make traffic stops. Okay? That was the city of Ann Arbor ordinance that basically forbids the Ann Arbor police from pulling over vehicles for a number of violations. One of those violations includes driving with tinted windows. So why is that relevant in Ypsi Township? Well, it's relevant because on August 22nd, two Washtenaw County Sheriff's deputies stopped a vehicle for having tinted windows in Washtenaw and Gulfside just prior to going into, say, Pittsfield Township. As a result of that traffic stop, there were 4 guns that were retrieved from that vehicle, and as a result of that traffic stop, those handguns, one of which was stolen out of from a U.S. Marshal in Virginia, were turned over to the Michigan State Police. Michigan State Police have confirmed that 2 of those 3 handguns were a match to 3 separate shootings. One of the shootings occurred in the city of Ypsi in 2021, one occurred in the city of Inkster in 2022, and one occurred in Ypsilanti Township in 2023. So, hypothetically, if this car is driving in Ann Arbor, police officer does not have a legal basis, according to Ann Arbor, to pull that vehicle over. It was pulled over in Ypsi Township, and you have at least got right now guns off the street and at least 3 shootings that are being investigated because they now have the weapon that was used to commit that crime. So while people want to talk about, firearm violence, there are many measures that are being done at times, I think, to almost make it difficult to eradicate firearm violence. We just recently had, and just so people know, the township officials, as well as our office, we receive each week a summary of rather significant incidents that happen every week in Ypsilanti Township. And in fact, the number of guns that we have received or the deputies have recovered this year are such that Lieutenant Peltier is actually going to do a matrix to try and match up how those guns were possibly used in different crimes and the result of those guns that were received, what charges were filed, if any, and what was the outcome of those charges. And so right now, last week, we had another situation that occurred at a local business establishment on Ellsworth Road where a person had been released from the Michigan Department of Corrections in April, went into a business establishment, pulled a gun out, and told 3 individuals to kneel, and one got away and later on called the police, and they were stopped and arrested in Pittsfield Township, with Washtenaw County also being involved in that arrest. I confirmed today there was 6 separate felony complaints that were filed. I'm not sure 6 was enough given the facts as I know them to be, but the 6 that were filed were felon in possession of firearm, felon in possession of ammunition, carrying a concealed weapon, assault with a dangerous weapon, count 2, assault with a dangerous weapon, count 6, using a firearm in the commission of a felony. All very significant crimes that carry a very, very significant prison time. This person was arraigned. 2 days later, bond was set at $20,000. The person is bonded out tonight. So this is what occurs throughout the county on a regular basis. And so it's fair and it's appropriate to have a public forum on any kind of policy changes that the board may make in terms of policing. But I would caution all of you right now that the path that's being followed by the city of Ann Arbor is not the right one for this township. And it's my opinion in regards to just looking at the facts, especially when you see the amount of firearms. We had another incident this past week over in West Willow where there was a altercation and deputies arrived and there was a foot chase involved and there were 2 more weapons recovered, one including an assault rifle in the waistband of a person. So there are significant gun violence issues that are associated with ordinary calls for service that generate contact, and the sheriffs and the deputies have done a tremendous job in trying to remove guns from those that would do harm. In regards to, I guess the last thing I'll bring up tonight, and Supervisor Stumble may wish to add to it, all of us are very, very, busy. There's been a tremendous amount of legal work this past number of years, this year being no exception. We also have a situation that is occurring on Minion Drive that involves a number of businesses that, from what we can tell, are operating without the proper zoning. They don't have the zoning verification to do what they're doing. They're having a tremendous negative impact upon the neighborhood. I think the residents, I want to say, is it Maplewood or Hawthorne, have called repeatedly with videos, with complaints, trying to sort out the ownership issues, trying to sort out the different zoning violations. Have taken a great deal of the zoning department's time, but I think in talking with Jason tonight before he went for the conference that he's in a position right now to give our office what we need in order to go to court, because I think it's absolutely it's unfair for all those neighbors when you see complaints from people that have come, like they've come to the supervisor's office on a weekly basis. Sometimes they could come almost daily, but even the people making the complaints are showing restraint because they know that we're listening, but at the same time they get frustrated because they want to see something done. And so tonight may not be the best time to ask for authorization because you don't have anything in front of you to look at. I understand all that. But I'm just giving the board a heads up that it may very well be one that administrative authorization would be appropriate in the next few days once Jason returns from the conference, and also to let the people know in Hawthorne, in the neighborhood, not just Hawthorne, but the whole neighborhood, that the township does not stand by and tolerate the, everyone has property rights, but you do not have the right to use your property in a way that becomes a nuisance to those that are trying to live in a very peaceful, quiet neighborhood daily existence. And so we understand there's got to be a balance, but this is way, way over the top. So I could probably go on for another 8 or 9, but those have been some of the concerns that have come up during the last week or so. And we'll keep you informed as to the outcome of the Men Like Us matter. But also, again, the amount of gun violence that we're seeing really requires the township to really, I think, in my words, double down on the issue, because we've seen too many times people released on bond that commit crimes. I don't need to. I will say one more thing because I think it's important enough, because it happened this past summer when there was a shooting involved in the apartments. I think it was over there in Campbell, not Campbell, but the one, was it Campbell Street, where the 4 young men were shot? George Place. The person that's in custody for that shooting had been arrested a year ago for carrying a concealed weapon. It was not authorized until February of this year. So from August of 2022 to February of 2023, the person that's charged with carrying a concealed weapon has got 6 months out. So that April and May, when he committed the shootings, there had been a warrant out for his arrest, albeit not until February, for carrying a concealed weapon. And that person then committed the 4 shootings, which resulted in 2 people being killed. So when I asked the magistrate, okay, once you issue a felony warrant for what I consider to be a firearm violent offense, carrying a concealed weapon means you actually have a firearm and you're carrying it around. When you arrest that person in August, and it takes until February to issue the charge, okay, what do you do then? Do you go out and look for that person? Is there any kind of a task force that tries to find these people with outstanding felony warrants, especially with firearms, especially when they're on social media, Facebook, telling people where they live and what they're going to do? And so the response I received was, no, we wait until they come into contact with law enforcement again. Well, the contact was made when he committed the 4 shootings, which resulted in 2 deaths, and ironically, on the day that he was arraigned for those murders and other assorted felonies, they happened to also finally arraign him on the carrying the concealed weapon charge that had happened a year earlier. So I would take issue with anyone that says right now that the police they're doing a difficult job, but you cannot send to a response like this to someone who's not prepared for that situation, whether it's Men Like Us, whether it's the shootings, whether it's pulling over vehicles. And if they want to change the laws to make tinted windows legal, then so be it. But until such time as it is changed, I think the Washtenaw County Sheriff's deputies are doing a tremendous job for this township and tremendous service to the county by ensuring right now that we do not become known as a safe haven where you can drive around without being pulled over because there's certain infractions that other municipalities feel basically is not in their best interest. So I'll stop right there.
Thank you, Mr. Winters. Was there 67 guns recovered this year already?
I think there's 67 right now. So
67 right now that's been recovered, and actually been taken off the street because of our deputies. I did get a text today from Shane that said, who's our lieutenant. I have to make sure what I say is clear now. He said the CAT, in partnership with ATF, is doing a warrant sweep today. So we meet every Monday with our lieutenant of the Sheriff's Department, and we actually get daily calls for service and activity that's going on, and then we get a summary once a week and meet. Public safety is people's number one concern. It always has been, and I think you can actually hold people accountable and help others in the community like we do already. I think not having accountability for gun violence or violent crimes is going to lead to a very, very unsafe county. Not just here. It's going to be everywhere. I mean, even in Ann Arbor, they were coming out of two U of M students. Two people jumped out of a car with long guns, ordered them to turn over their purses and I think their phones. They did end up catching them. But can you imagine? I can't imagine being on Washington Avenue at 8:00 p.m., coming out of a restaurant and having someone pointing a gun at me and ordering me to the ground. And that's what happened. And that's who they released. And the person who released it was Magistrate Fink, who's not Ypsilanti Township's. That's a county offense because it's a felony. And our prosecutor. This person is in the wind. This person has he has no reason to come in and say, okay, I'm going to turn myself in and go to trial on October 5th. There's no incentive to do that. He was found in his car, completely passed out. He would not wake up. They pounded, they did everything. So they had to break a window. And then he got combative. And for people, and I've never experienced that, and I hope and pray no one has to experience having a gun pointed at your face or order to get on the ground. I mean, that shouldn't be happening and accepted. And we need to come together and at least agree that that's not acceptable. And our county prosecutor and our sheriff deputies do their part. They arrest them and present it, but after that, there's no control. So I don't know. I would love to have a forum on violence in the community and solutions to it. And I think we need police officers. I know we need police officers because they enforce the law. They're the only people who do. We can't. So to not have compassion, second chances, all of it, of course, but not holding people accountable is going to lead to many more deaths if we continue down the path we're at. So I just wanted to say that we don't control the county prosecutor on this issue, and we need to have a conversation with them again. And I have before. It's not working, folks. It's not working.
Can I add, I don't know if am I allowed to do question or, because there's a couple things that I'm Attorney Winters that I don't want to lose sight of. The only thing I'd add to what you described that happened in Ann Arbor that is just terrifying, so much of it's terrifying, was that not only did they point the gun at them and tell them to hand over their stuff, then they were upset that they didn't hand over enough, so pointed the gun at them again, then proceeded to get in their car, pointed the gun at them a third time, and now I'm not using the right term, clicked it or cocked it so that like they were actually ready to shoot, which is they already had what they'd asked for, and all that's terrorizing. But to me, like the 3 times, like but to have it and then to be getting ready to go and then to continue to point at someone is just so, I I can't, and, you know, these are kids that are out on campus, so that part, I mean, it's all terrorizing, but then to have done what, and complied with what you were asked to comply, and then still have your life, like, hanging there is just horrible. But that's not what I was planning on talking about. I just think that's another point of terror that is really hard for me to fathom. A lot of what's happening in the lines with that report that doesn't make any kind of news. So I think it's so concerning that residents and our community and the county just don't know the volume of what's happening because it's not being carried in any way where people can look at it and then know to protect themselves, right? I mean, I don't know what that is, but it is frightening. So two things, the authorization, like thinking about Galt Village, my concern is that we've done a lot of work to do something really positive, and then what Attorney Winters is describing can happen like in a heartbeat, really. Like already there's a lot of dumping. I went over there to look, there's a lot of dumping. So my concern is that so often there's things that get discussed, like in a report, and then have to transfer to like action pretty quickly. So I don't think that one, I'm with you that cannot wait. I'm almost even more concerned about how that's going to happen to the next meeting, because if there are people on site, just anything that's going to, like the neighbors are just, you'll almost spoil the good that's been done if we allow something to incubate, and then the whole process of like a public nuisance, I mean, it's already been done and happened. So I don't know how quickly we move on that particular idea, but it was needed, I guess, in hindsight. We needed to be thinking of that in parallel with the demolition project itself. I'm really concerned about Minion Drive. Residents are very patient, but they're being asked to put up with a lot. So is there an option for us to have the 3 full-time officials meet? There's also stuff and limitations in our budget, the budget, like what you can, spending policy, financial policy, that's what it is, sorry, it's getting late. That if the 3 decide, like, couldn't we just do something so that it doesn't wait till another meeting, because they've already been waiting probably too long. Is that possible?
Yeah,
How would we do that tonight? Can we do that?
There is a policy that allows the 3 full-time administratives to do a pre-authorization for court, and then we bring it here for formal approval.
I just want it, I want it, whatever we have to do tonight, because I'm trying to be more specific about my motions and all that. I would like to see that happen tonight so that can get started.
And I have no problem with that. What Doug had stated was that we didn't have enough information to do it. I have enough information because we've been following it here, but there's nothing in writing. It's a zoning issue and they're operating illegally, a trucking industry, they're painting trucks.
Would you have enough, I guess what I'm thinking, I heard that they didn't have enough, but you probably could get enough prior to making residents wait a whole nother till the.
No, we can do it once we can do it once Jason returns and provides the information. There's like a process that they'll do a memo. Jason will, laying out the legal reasons in order to proceed. We could.
There've actually been, I should have clarified this, there've already been notices of violations have already been issued for all those property owners. I think that what Jason is doing now is compiling additional data, additional information, but the NOVs have already been issued for all the property owners along Minion that are involved here. So I think that what you could right now is have a motion, if you see fit, to authorize the full-time officials to authorize our office to proceed to abate the nuisance that's been created on Minion Drive on all those properties that have received NOVs from the planning department. It's pretty wordy, I understand that, but there are NOVs that have been issued to all those property owners.
Do you have, normally when we authorize it, either by the 3 full-time officials or by the board, we always have addresses that are, and if we have the specific addresses, I just didn't have that in.
I do, it's 850 Minion, 900 Minion, 924 Minion.
$850,909,924
Yes.
million. So, I mean, we could authorize those addresses specifically tonight. We just don't have the memo and everything.
Yeah, my concern is just waiting until October 17th.
No, yeah, we wouldn't, yeah.
Because it's going to,
Yeah, and we don't have to wait till the next meeting. We can do it tonight. It's a little unorthodox, I mean, it's not, I don't mind. No, I don't, but we're gonna, we normally have a process. There's a memo that has, and we don't have that, Doug was saying, because Jason hasn't prepared that yet, but I'm comfortable with it, but I have a lot of memos.
And we could do the
Yeah.
administrative
Yeah.
thing prior to the board.
We bring it, yeah. Yeah, we can do that. Oh, and there are no trees. They've clear cut everything and just operating a complete truck stop right up against the residents. It is, they've tried to get compliance, which is always our goal, but they are not. I'm comfortable with doing it this way since we have addresses. I didn't have addresses before. I'm comfortable with that. If someone wants to move it. So a motion to authorize legal action against $850,900,000 and $924 million? Yeah.
To be able to go and do that and get started in the process.
There's a policy that allows us to do that currently, yeah.
So, could I say I make a motion that we follow the policy? So that,
We don't need a motion.
Yeah, we don't, okay.
We either can do a motion tonight or we don't need a motion because we have the authority.
Okay, so you guys can do this tonight?
Yes.
Okay, all right, and the plan is to get this.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Okay. Thank you, though. Under old business, we have the request to approve the agreement for election services with Washtenaw County. It was tabled, so we need a motion to remove from table.
Motion removed from table?
Motion Rowe. Support Eldridge. All in favor to remove from table.
Aye.
It's properly before this board now.
I'd make a motion to request to approve the agreement for election services with Washtenaw County.
We have a motion to approve the agreement by Rowe.
we have to have support.
Support by Swanson. Discussion? I know we've had a lot of discussion. Is there any other?
So if we don't approve the agreement, we would also say that we don't. If the election voting services agreement.
We would be saying that we do not want to participate in the county coordinated agreement all the way through at least 2025.
Okay,
If we do approve it, we at least have an option to go through February and reevaluate if it's not our preference.
all right.
So voting yes means we enter into the agreement. Voting no means we're not entering into the agreement.
Correct.
And we've talked a lot about it and good conversations, great conversations, actually. My biggest, I really am concerned about voting in Ann Arbor, and I know it's a second option, but that is so confusing to me as well. And I I'm willing to do whatever it takes to support the clerk's office and helping to make sure this is successful if we vote to retain local control of voting here in Ypsilanti Township. So I know a lot's already been said, but I just want to say that.
I'll just clarify that. Sorry. Were you going to speak?
I was just going to say, we have a history in this township of collaborating with other entities, with the county, with the sheriff's department. Well, we've done it with the city. We've done it with a number of people in collaboration. But when we did those collaborations, we were agreeing to be a partner in something that was already proven. By Ed's, from the county's own words tonight, this is kind of a guesstimate going forward, and that's what concerns me, because I'm not sure I can feel comfortable being a test case with votes. That's my concern. And it may be an unfounded one, but that's my concern.
Trustee Swanson.
So I just want to say that my vote tonight, I don't want anyone to take out of or misconstrue that it's not a vote of respect for our clerk's office and our clerk. I hear that the recommendation coming from them is that, so somebody could misconstrue that. But again, it's I appreciate what Trustee Eldridge just said, that you can't make an error when it comes to the voting. And I think the strongest part that's going to come into the collaboration is actually going to be the people that we bring into the collaboration, their experience, their expertise. We've put money into equipment every time, knowing that we're trying to make our clerk's office stronger. So I don't want it to be that I didn't care, I don't value our people. I actually have a lot of respect for what happens with elections in Ypsilanti Township.
And I would just also offer, even the gentleman from the county said this evening, the intent behind this originally was for small communities that would benefit from it. The largest community in this county is not participating. We fall right next to them. The closest is Pittsfield. I did some work earlier. Pittsfield has 29,000 voters. I think I read we had 46. Everybody else was, I want to say, under 15. So, again, maybe in 2 years we'll see that this has worked well. I don't know. I just am a little uncomfortable that this is kind of a test case, not just here, but everywhere.
Clerk Rowe.
Madam Chair, I'd just like to again reiterate that this whole thing is a test case. Prop 2 is completely new to our state. So every single thing that we do, we'll be doing it for the first time. Again, my office, the entire office, feels that the best way to move forward in this new step is to at least try an early voting agreement with the county. If we don't at least try this, we're never going to know if it works for us or not. I would also add that every other county agreement that we're entered into, we don't really have a backup option of what we're going to do. This we do. We could enter into it, and if it doesn't work out, then we leave. We leave before August. I feel like that's an extremely safe option to try, and I would just say, I understand the different municipality sizes, but next to, like, the city of Ann Arbor is not participating, and they have 110,000 voters. That's more than double what we have. The clerk over in Pittsfield Township, which is the next largest, sees this as a, completely obvious path forward, and her board has already voted to support that. So again, I don't know. This is the path that this clerk's office, myself, and all of our staff see as the best way forward. This is the way forward that myself and 22 other clerks in our county see as the best way forward. So with that, I would just like to make a motion and call the question.
Is there a support to call the question? Because I think John did you?
Oh, I just had a question.
There's a motion to call the question by Clerk Rowe. Is there a support? Okay, go ahead, John.
They're supporting any election, and we have until June 7th. Are there any elections? Because this one coming up is not an election that Washtenaw County is going to be involved in. So between now and June, will there be an election that they'll participate in, or that will participate in?
Yeah. Trustee Newman, the answer to your question is that this current election that we're in right now for the Lincoln Consolidated Schools, that is not, it's not required yet by law to have the early voting. And additionally, when it is required, it will only be for state and federal elections. So the next election that this would impact is February of 2024. So in the presidential primary, there will be an extremely busy election. Would be the first time that anyone in this state has ever had the opportunity to early vote. And in joining this partnership and accepting this agreement would allow us to at least participate in that one to see how things work. Did I answer your question? Yes. Thank you.
Madam Chair?
Trustee Hunter.
Yep, so my feelings are unchanged from the work session. I stand on everything that was stated there. I don't personally feel like the township needs to be the first person to test the parachute. If it works, then in 2025, we can revisit, and then I'd gladly enlist us or vote to enlist us. That being said, also, the other aspect that I just want to remind this board of was if we choose to exit this agreement, we then have to submit to the county a plan, and then they have to approve that plan. So if they don't, for whatever their reasons are, which the county has already demonstrated to me, and should have demonstrated to this board, that they do not cooperate with our requests. So I have, right now, the trust and the faith is not secure with me. So I just want us to be mindful about that, and do not forget that. And I rest there. Thank you.
Madam Chair, if I could just offer some clarification to Trustee Hunter. We are all trying this. Again, this is the first time in our state that anyone has been able to early vote. It is a new law that was passed less than a year ago. So we will not be the first to try the parachute. We will all be doing it together, hopefully with another 22 municipalities. And I do understand, I understand there are different concerns among the county, and the county clerk's deputy director of elections was here tonight and explicitly said, our office is not partner to or have anything to do with things like barrier busters or the sheriff's office or any of those other agreements that we've had. And lastly, and this is by no means personal, but this is, so I don't want anyone to take that this way, but this is a governing thing. We need to put our feelings aside about Washtenaw County and the Board of Commissioners and all the other things that we maybe don't agree with, and look at this as a governing thing. The best way to continue to govern over elections at this time, by the opinion of the clerk of this township and the entire staff of this clerk's office here, is to move forward with this. This is the best way, in the view of our clerk's office, to govern over elections, at least to get through the presidential primary, and then we can pause and reevaluate.
Why is this a best option?
I think that this is venturing into a whole new space, right? And the best way to do that, to me, is with more resources, more collaboration, to allow our voters to have another site, for the cost-saving benefits of everything. I mean, I could go back through my list. It's good collaboration, the support of other clerks and the county, the partnership within that. It's fiscally responsible. It's required by our state to do this. And the point of, I would have to submit a plan to the county, as what Ed said when he was here, that they are the conduit to the state. It is not submitting a plan to Larry Kessenbaum to get his okay of his feelings on it. It's to make sure that we're checking off all of the things that are required by law that they then pass along to the state. Because at the end of the day, the county clerk's department has no jurisdiction over the conduct of what we're doing. The Bureau of Elections is who oversees elections at the end of the day. They're at the top of the chain. And what we have to do is follow the laws that are set in place and do that. So the county clerk's office just verifies that the plan meets all of the check boxes and then passes it along to the top, which is the Bureau of Elections.
Well, Clerk Rowe, it does go down to governance. You're absolutely correct. And I think local governance is better.
I've heard everyone's thoughts on it, which...
That's just my opinion on it, and it is based on knowing our clerk staff and knowing you and knowing the process and how we administer the process. And this doesn't guarantee a savings. It says it will, but there's also flexibility in it. I really don't like the idea of trying to explain to people to go vote in Ann Arbor or Washtenaw. That is so confusing to me, and I think it would be confusing to the voters. I think for transparency and responsibility and accountability, local government does it well.
Madam Chair, if I could, something that we all heard Ed talk about tonight is the consistency in messaging and how important that is for our whole county to have the same messages put out. And I agree with you, the whole thing's confusing. Like, if you talk to any resident, we're having an election right now. People are confused about if it's an application or if it's a ballot, and next year we're gonna just be sending ballots. We've never done that before. We've never early voted. There's gonna be so much confusion around everything, and that's why having a succinct message that comes from the county, almost countywide, is, to me, transparent, effective, and helpful in helping educate our voters the best way.
If everyone was doing it, that might be true. There's 3 communities that are not. So that consistent message, it's not going to be there. It can't be because 3 of the communities are not doing it countywide. If everyone was doing it countywide, maybe that would be true. I do just believe in local government and local control over important issues like voting, and I trust the election process in Ypsilanti Township. Nothing against Ed. Ed hasn't ran an election. Has he ran one?
So that's also like a misconception. And he said, they don't run precincts, but that's not their primary job.
Oh, I know.
There are municipalities who they literally go out and have to do it because they're like the safety net, and they will. And in the last, within the last year, I think it maybe was Sharon Township or somewhere. Me and Lisa couldn't remember, but they staff their whole precinct because their clerk is brand new, part-time, doesn't understand how to run an election, and the county will step in and knows A to Z what our process is. I mean, the county trains our workers, they help, they train us, they come and do our audits. So like the county is a very integral part already for our elections. And I know you know that because you're very aware of it. They do not run our elections, though. I did not say that they ran our elections, but there's, They
do have an important part of it. He says it's philosophical. Maybe it's not. It's just, I think good governance is local. That's just the difference.
Madam Chair, I don't want to diminish the ideas that were shared that were counter to the clerk's opinion as feelings. Or that they're focused on the relationship or any of that kind of stuff. Like what I listened to board members say, Trustee Eldridge went point by point by point, clarifying things that were not necessarily like easy to answer. There were questions about, like Trustee Hunter had questions about like the integrity and like what's that worth and how it's going to be. So I know that we're passionately trying to represent the side that we are, but I think it would be remiss if we're, like I said, some checks and balance and stuff. I mean, that's about governance. So it's not about feelings. It's not about really, we're all here to serve people. The county's here to serve people. We're here to serve people. Like, that's just the way it's supposed to work. And at some point in time, there might be thinking that something needs to happen that isn't about like how somebody feels. So that part I'm uncomfortable with because it came really close after Trustee Hunter said something. And I think, he said a whole lot of other stuff. So to limit what he said as to something about feelings, I think that's kind of an unfair characterization. There's other things that could be said too. I'm thinking if we're worried about misinformation, us only being in-house allows us to be very consistent with our residents who only need to hear one message. So we can do something about that. And then the other thing that is a little concerning to me too is like, if we've never done it before, why don't we just let the February one happen? Let people give it a try, learn from it all together, and then bring people together who are like, well, I think this might be what would happen. So, I mean, a lot of stuff can be spinned in a different way. I think I might have felt better if we had a taste of what it meant, because I go back to our clerk's office. You have done a stellar job with your staff in very hard times. COVID and all, you've risen to the occasion to do things and to do it really well. So I would have felt better. It wasn't operated that way. And so now we just got to make a decision based on what we know. That's a lot of unknowns.
All right. We have a motion and support to approve the agreement. And I'm going to do a roll call vote because Swanson?
It's roll call right now?
Yes.
No.
Newman?
No.
Rowe?
Yes.
Stumbo votes no. Eldridge?
No.
Hunter?
No.
The motion is denied. Number 2 is a request to approve, under new business, number 1 is a request to approve a change order number 2 with Hamrick for the Galt Village demolition in the amount of $21,038, which is budgeted.
So moved.
Motion Eldridge.
Support.
Support Newman to approve the Hamrick change order number 2. We had discussion at length in the work session. Are there any questions on the change order? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 2 is a request to approve change order number 1 with SME for the abatement and monitoring service for the Galt Village demolition project in the amount of $55,000, which is budgeted, contingent upon approval of the budget amendment.
So moved.
Motion Eldridge.
Support.
Support Newman. Is there discussion on this? Hopefully these are the last change orders for the Galt Village, other than possible fencing going around to make sure it's protected until it's redeveloped. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 3 is a request for approval of the application for payment from Hamrick for work performed for the Galt Village demolition in the amount of $376,043.72.
So moved.
Motion Eldridge?
Support.
Support Swanson. Is there discussion on this? Yes.
I will say, I know Jason's in the audience. I know he has, this is the first time that Hamrick has actually been certified for payment, and you can see the breakdown on the request for payment. In talking with Jason, I know that the final payment will include all of the lien waivers and all the other documents that are needed, but this is their initial payment, I believe, from the original contract.
Questions or comments? Hearing none. First payment for the Galt Village demolition. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 4 is a request approval of the draft job description for Assistant Municipal Services Director and Recreation Specialist, and to post and fill both positions.
So moved.
Aaron, I'm so sorry.
So moved.
Motion Eldridge.
Support.
Support Hunter. Karen? John?
Good evening. As the memo indicates, following John being promoted to our Municipal Services Director, several meetings occurred between the 3 full-time officials, myself and John, excuse me, reviewing what we now refer to as residential services area. and what some changes could be made to better serve the township residents. And so the recommendation, that is what is being brought forth. At this point, I do have, or you were issued job descriptions for the Assistant Municipal Services Director, which would be John's assistant. And then we're also asking for a new position at Recreation as a recreation specialist. This position would help the two coordinators that are there, in addition to help the recreation services manager in programming, and also help the position that we've recommended for the community events manager. So this is a position that would kind of be assistant to several people, in addition to hopefully bringing in new programmings themselves. So I know there's been some questions. I had John come up. This is his area, his expertise, and I think he's probably able to answer those questions probably better than I.
Questions or comments from the board?
I do believe the 3 full-times were, we were all in agreement with this, but questions?
Is this recreation specialist, you said it's a new job, so have we had it before? I guess I'm trying to compare it to the last person that left. Is it to fill that position? Angie Burgess, is that?
No, Angie was actually the Recreation Services Manager.
Okay.
Which is the position that we currently have posted right now, which was John's position. John was moved to a director's position as he became the backup for the Residential Services Director. So it's basically the same position that Recreation Services Manager, sorry. So this is a new position we have never had. I will say 2 years ago, Mike Hoffmeister actually brought this forward, and we did some talking at that point.
Okay.
We just never brought it forward.
Okay. And so this person will be responsible, will be like a jack of all trades, in the recreation department.
Yeah. Good evening, John Hines, Municipal Services Director. So the specialists would be more entry level than the coordinators, and the goal of the position would be to help assist the recreation service manager as well as the community events manager. So they'll help their desk will be located behind the front desk, behind where the building attendants sit, so they can be accessible by both community events and recreation service manager. So they'll be responsible for some programming, not at the same level that the coordinators are, but maybe some of the contracted positions. And that would help alleviate the recreation service manager from as much or more of the day-to-day programming to focus on some of the building events or building rentals, contracted services, and then other long-form programs.
Questions? And mine are, I don't know, they might be not questions, I'm not sure. I've already expressed a little bit where I asked them. So I appreciate the work that's been done on it with both of you, full-time officials. My concern is, when we had the ordinance changing and all of that, we had a flow chart. I was understanding everybody and how they relate to each other. And in this place, I don't feel like we have that. I know I've been told we do, so I'm trying to I'm just trying to understand how we should be thinking maybe even a little more visionary in how we do this. So I like the fact, the community events and stuff, but for me, it feels like we're gonna go and then we're gonna hire people. And then I'm just thinking what are we trying to accomplish in maybe a more holistic way? And then I'm worried about going and getting people and not understanding what we're trying to do here. Because I think it's an opportunity at this point when we're adding things to look differently. And once people get hired and they get put in these little spots, I don't know that helps when you're trying to think about how all these things relate. And so we've been piecing things in every time somebody leaves. We've got to adjust and we move people around, we ask people to do more. And I'm just not convinced that the way this is all arranged right now makes sense to me, or that it makes sense in what I'd hope to see maybe as we're looking forward and the way to go. So that's my concern, that I don't think with a long meeting it's going to necessarily be able to be explained to me quickly for me to be able to feel comfortable with that. But I'm just one voice.
Sure, and I'd love to have at least a try as best I can on that. So basically with the conversations that we all had, and Karen and I had past that, the goal for this would be to have more of a complete recreation program offering. Now, I know the areas that I think that the department excels right now: youth sports, adult sports, 15 beyond programming. Everything else right now is fit into around those bubbles. So we do have a solid dance program. We do have, solid gymnastics. We do have day trips. We do have some things to fit around. I think the things we really excel at. The goal with bringing these positions in is to give that flexibility and accessibility to offer more to the township. My background in recreation, I've worked for the city of Saline, for the Saline Rec Department. There was a director, there were 2 supervisors, there were 3 full-time programmers on top of the staff, and they service, I think about 12,000 people. South Lyon, we had a director, we had 3 coordinators as well as front desk staff. And in Pittsfield, we had a director, 2 coordinators, 2 specialists, as well as the desk staff. So we all had more staff dedicated to programming than we currently have, and we have a population bigger than all 3 of those areas. And I, again, give complete full credit to the coordinators we've had, the programming we already have, the rentals we take, everything. I think it's a very solid job. The hope would be with these positions is that we're able to divvy the work up to add more for the residents. The community events position I'm very excited about, because we already have fantastic community events, and the drive that there seems to be to bring in more for that community engagement is a full-time position that's going to take a lot of time, a lot of effort to really build to have something that's year-round. And as I said in the email, not every event is going to be to the scale that some are now, but it's going to be more often and be able to connect to more and offer those different needs, whether it be something that's holiday-based or just something to get people out to one of our various parks. The recreation specialist, it really is entry level. When I did it at Pittsfield, it was to assist the coordinator that was there, and there was one for the senior programmer there to assist them in the day-to-day. It's really just to help add coverage and take some of, again, that contracted burden, as well as be an assistant to the community event specialist, because they're going to need to come in with their vision for how park rentals and special event rentals are going to be taken and administered. Because we've done a process that's worked for a long time, but that process in communications with the Park Commission needs to be readdressed and kind of differentiated between what is a single day event, what is a long, more of a bigger event that's going to be more of coordination and approval with site plans and insurances. As I've kind of said, and we kind of were started to address, is a special event permit for a bounce house is different than a special event for, a park event. And those things are what need to be looked at. So by adding these positions, it's going to let our current coordinators focus more on the sports and the 15 beyond that they do and bring more into that capacity, as well as let the recreation service manager oversee the dance program, work with the community events program or the community events manager to get a more complete event schedule, as well as look for grant funding opportunities, bring in more building rentals, and oversee the contracts and the budget, and again, oversee the rest of the staff in the department. So I think really just this allows those positions to get freed up, so you're not allowing so many duties to be tasked to each person that aren't in the same vein, and really kind of takes them out of their strain of focus.
So when you look at the community events manager, like you've got park rentals there, that seems like that's got clerical stuff with it, but it doesn't look like there's any support that's there for that particular long line of work versus other places that have some support for that. So I get, like, if you're the person who's responsible for like special events, and like that's all got to be coordinated, but I'm just thinking, like, how does that get help with clerical? Because it is kind of a clerical thing.
So part of that does come with the percentage that they'll oversee the recreation specialist, but The community events manager will be housed out of the recreation department. There'll be constant communication between them and the recreation service manager to get that clear and concise message to the building attendants, the coordinators, and the specialists who will take those reservations when they come in from the public. Everything will be done, I guess I'll say, is the clear direction of what the community events manager sees as their vision for how the rentals are to come in and be coordinated with the rest of their staff that are actually at the park every single day and on the weekends.
And then are they going to have support for that? Because, I mean, I've been at special events, working special events, and seeing that kind of work that has to be done. So, I mean, doing clerical stuff or doing that is not going to happen when you're working like that kind of stuff. So there is no support for them? Like, is there no support for that particular part? The park rental, like I guess park rental, like the paperwork and all that processing and all of that, that's a lot for.
Well, I guess I would put it as the same way it is right now. I mean, as it was previously, as the recreation director, I oversaw the park rentals and, of course, shared that with the park staff and got them their documents every Thursday. But I only took the ones that I answered the phone for. Our building attendants took the rest. Our coordinators did it. That all stays the same. The only difference is now it is at the direction of how the community events manager sees for it to best hopefully fit into the vision of the township, but as well as for their staff for the most clear and concise message to oversee the rentals as they're there on the weekends. So my hope is by this position being at the community center is they're fully supported by all the recreation staff. And maybe the line doesn't directly go over them because it goes under the recreation service manager, but everyone in that building is a team working together to accomplish the goals.
I mean, as somebody said earlier, like it can't be about people. It's got to be about what we see there because people can change. So that part is something that doesn't look like. There is a potential for some miscommunication and stuff depending on that. And then, so all the people who are on that top line, so you're at the top, and then you're handling vendor contracts, and then all the people that are on that top line over there, like the superintendent, the golf pro, the assistant director, the recreation service managers, the community events manager, have we done a look through to see, like, you know, when we're looking at that, like, all the time we talk about, like, what people should be paid for things. Have we done a good look through to make sure that those positions that have a lot of work to do to make your position easier, really, that's what's happening, making your position easier, that that all of that, like we've done an assessment of that, Karen, to make sure that, like, because we tend to move people around. We give people more work, and then sometimes the piece about making sure that they're getting paid for the work is what it should be, or whatever, what you go out and say is. So I'm wondering about that part. I'm just worried we're going to go plug people in, and then we're back later trying to figure out, did we make sure we did an assessment of the whole big thing?
I think we did. It was a long process to bring it here to where we're at, and lots of, this isn't how it started. Based on feedback and questions like you're just asking, there was a lot of discussion, and what's being presented has been thought out and has been salaried out by Karen and John. The community events manager, which is a new position, is really just a shift of one person who was really doing all that, that was doing the events anyways, but this person was also doing neighborhood watch.Ey're not going to be doing that. So that's going to be taken away.
And I can appreciate that a lot of work's been done, but the problem is, as a trustee, we're sitting here and we're being asked to do something without the value of all that kind of information coming to us. So it would have been nice, I mean, even tonight with the election situation, which is long voted gone, like when we're sitting here, maybe it's just me not understanding the limitation of what I should be doing as a trustee rather than a full-time official. But it helps to know something's coming, and this is what we've looked through. This is what our understanding is, so that you're layering it to make it easier for us to say, I can see it, I can do it, right? What's happening is tonight, there's two things on the agenda where we're being asked to stretch towards something that you guys maybe feel 100% comfortable with it because you've been in the room, you've had the discussions, you've seen how the salary thing has all been worked out, and it's in fairness. Like, I don't feel like I have the benefit of seeing how it got there, walk through. Karen, you're great often of coming in and telling us, this is what we did, this is what we found, this is what we did, this is what we found. And maybe I'm just speaking on behalf, I don't know if you feel like you've got a lot of information about all that was done to get here. I don't feel like I did. And again, I'm not going to tie everybody up. I just want to say that's my concern.
Well, we normally have stuff on a work session, but that didn't work out because we have, yeah.
But I think even coming tonight for a work session for this isn't really helping me with the idea of we're getting close to doing something, and this is what we're doing in the process of getting there. And we're going to be bringing this to you in the next meeting. That's the part, right?
That's what we would normally do. And we didn't happen.
And now I'm like, oh, yeah, trust us. I mean, and I'm not saying I don't trust people, but our human infrastructure, if that's the right word, our human, whatever the word for that is our most valuable resource. And their ability to work together and cooperate in all departments and feel like the work they do is valued is extremely important. That's what we interface with the public. There are everything, really. We're just your policy doing whatever, but it's the people every day who show up here to take care of the residents and do their job that matters. So these things are not small potatoes to me as a trustee, but maybe I'm just not supposed to know. I'm just supposed to say, people looked at it and they said, hey, let's do this. So
No,
I don't need any more than that. That is my concern.
Small potatoes we're not saying that. The purpose on the agenda is to discuss it. And that's what we're doing. Unfortunately, we didn't have enough time to discuss it before. What would you like to see? I think just having it on a work session and going over it maybe would be the best way.
I would have liked to see that it was coming. And here's what we're doing to prepare for it. And here's how we make sure that if we're moving things around, that the position and the salary for it and all of that have had their due diligence to make sure that it works. And then I can feel better when something doesn't work. I mean, I'm not going to get into the specifics of it. I feel like even bringing that to me at a work session, the packet that comes on a Friday, which I'm not complaining, I'm just talking about the amount of time. Like when we can look in a packet, we can look at things and stuff like that. There's a very short window of time for us, and I'm not complaining, I'm just saying, for me to make good decisions about this, there's not a lot of time to be able, I would have rather, if everybody was having meetings and they were doing this, I would have liked to know we're getting ready to do this for this purpose, and this is kind of the meeting we're having, this is what we're finding, so that I could feel good about that. Now, it's hindsight, so I'm asking for something that didn't happen. I'm just saying that would have made me feel better. Not a work session conversation. We're getting ready to create this kind of thing. And because when we did, I'll just go back to that part about ordinance. When Mike Radzik left and we were rearranging things, it wasn't a one meeting work session kind of thing. It was coming to us with understanding about how and what movements were going to take place and what we were thinking and who's at the table. And what questions might you have as trustees so that we can think that through before we bring them back?
Well, I want to say I apologize. I thought I did that, Debbie, to be honest with you. When I sent an email out a week ago Friday, kind of saying that this is kind of where we're looking. We've got some other things that's going to be coming to the October 3rd board meeting. So I'm sorry that didn't come across like that. I really thought that I was giving the entire board an update on what had been discussed in meetings and things. So I apologize if that wasn't made clear in that.
I'm asking for an apology. I was wondering, was a week ago Friday enough to be able to, and all that had happened. Like everything had been done. There was no position to kind of come in and say, like, what are your guys' thoughts? Again, I'm not trying to be critical. I'm just trying to feel comfortable. Like, it's nice to have the opportunity to know what's happening before. Maybe as a trustee, I'm not supposed to know that.
maybe all of that's supposed to happen before it comes to us. We get an email that says this is what happened. I read your email. I'm good about reading stuff. I am. I'm really good about reading stuff. I'm just, the time frame is so quick. And remember, we're part-time people. Like, I've got a whole nother job that I'm doing in addition to this. So if I get something on a Friday or a pack, I mean, like, there's a lot that has to be read and done. So I'm just expressing my my discomfort, and that's it. And, you know, what's going to happen is it's going to move through, and then if it doesn't go the way we're hoping, my big picture is going to go, well, you know, that's the concern. So, again, I'm not saying it. I just said that, everybody.
Yeah, no, I get it.
You are our nuts. You are our everything, is what I said. The people who work here are our everything. I'm not questioning that part. I just like to feel good about decisions, even if they're decisions that I don't agree about, knowing, because then I can go and articulate that too. There's been plenty of decisions in the last 3 years that we've had to make together that were not my, you know, personally, Debbie Swanson's kind of way of going, but when somebody presents it to me and they say, this is the way it's zoned, and this is how it's got to be, I get that as an elected governing person. I don't get to go by my feelings. I have to look at what zoning says and stuff like that. I mean, we've made hard decisions that were hard to make. I'm okay with that, but I guess that kind of time frame doesn't let me know. So like an update that says we're getting ready to do this and here's what we're thinking and what are your guys' thoughts about this? What are you thinking? That would be helpful. And then, not because I'm going to have really that say, or I'm not trying to make anything harder on people, but these are big decisions when we start to talk about hiring more people and making things easier. Like, I just would have, I mean, yeah, I'm not going to beat a dead horse.
Well, and I'm not going to say that doing this the way that we have it right here is going to be the best thing that could ever happen, and everything is going to be, I don't want to say hunky-dory, but I guess hunky-dory, and everything's, you know, all of the positions are going to grow, and I can't say that. Nobody can. But I do, like, you know, Brenda says, we're going to try this, and if it works, good. If it doesn't, we're willing to look at things again and to, you know, to reevaluate. Whatever the board's wishes will happen. If we need to go back and talk more, then I guess we'll have more meetings.
And when we redid the ordinance, we provided what the org chart was before and what it is now, you know, and we did it differently then. And we did have it at a work session, but that was a first step. And then the second step is that we came back with, after input and discussion, then we came back with the job descriptions and everything. So, I mean, we can do it that way.
I mean, I don't want to make this any longer, but the assistant MSD director, you know, we went out, I came to the board back,
April, May?
Yeah, early spring, to go out for a maintenance superintendent to supervise our park guys. We got nothing, basically, okay, of a applicant panel. So that job hadn't even been filled. And right now, John is still doing the day-to-day supervision of the guys in the back. That was one reason why we thought the assistant director would be able to take that day-to-day responsibility of those people, in addition to be his backup and a lot of the other things. So that's what brought across the assistant MSD director. That was also a position that Mike Hoffmeister wanted to bring forward. So that had been something that had been talked about a couple different times. The rec services manager is the job that's posted right now, and that's just replacing John. I mean, so that was a vacant position that we had to replace. But I don't know.
It's late. I would welcome a table. It doesn't matter.
I'll make a motion to table items 4 and 5?
No, not 5.
Not 5?
That's been budgeted for 3 years. We've been trying to fill that, but yeah.
Okay, I rescind my motion. Someone else can.
Table 4.
Well, what would be different, I guess, if the table, because I don't want to delay the work that's been done on behalf of everyone. So if tabling it to the next meeting is going to.
Well, but I want you to be comfortable with your vote. I mean, if we can do something to help it, I mean, I'm not against that. I don't want to come across.
Maybe an explanation or a time, but then how do we even guarantee there's set aside time at the work session to have a conversation, right? Like, we're tired, it's been long, I don't know what kind of big things are going to be there, but,
Madam Chair, I would just offer, like, we certainly, if there's ever any item that wants to be like a work session talking thing, we always try to honor those. I don't know, I don't think I know of anything in the next one that's big, but you never know what'll come up. And then I just wanted to add a little off topic, but Trustee Swanson, when I was a trustee, I always, we at some point, we started doing packets that would be published on Wednesday for the same reason that you said, like, I had a full-time job and it was hard to get through all that information, but the feedback was that it was really hard for the staff here to, get there. But so I just wanted to share that in the past, we've tried to flip and we came back to home, so.
I'm fine with tabling. I'm fine with tabling until the next meeting and getting on a work session agenda and laying out what it was and what it is and,
I was just going to ask if worth asking, was there a certain point that was the point of distinction? Or if you just want to table it, then we'll bring it back to, obviously whatever the board wishes.
The distinction is that we didn't have enough time to discuss it. And like we normally would in the past, we had an org chart of what it was, and then we showed what it is, and then we brought it back, to the board. And what I'm hearing Debbie say, and that's how it was done before, so I understand what you're saying and respect it.
I don't want to say anything. I'm sorry. I just wanted to, the technicalities, that's up to the board, but I just wanted to talk about someone that does programming with the Ypsilanti Township Senior Center. I can say that basically the level of organization has greatly increased. Like today, I went there were, 2 people manning the front desk. I have previously went there were nobody manning the front desk. And that sets a tone of when you come in. Do you feel comfortable at the location? So I just want to make sure that I say as a programmer, I get what you're saying, John, is that you do want someone to, be able to talk to directly as a coordinator. Sometimes you can't. The director is busy doing something else, right? So I get what he's saying, and I just wanted to make sure I put that support out there and also say, as someone that does programming, the level of services have greatly increased. So thank you.
Thank you.
Before is there anything that I can bring back to the next meeting that would, I think John kind of asked that, but is there anything that we could bring back that would help with the understanding of what the vision is, or?
would be helpful. Like, what was the past, what was the now, what are you hoping to accomplish with the changing way of it? And again, maybe we should just call the vote. If it's one vote, then there's enough votes to pass it and you guys can proceed.
What's the pleasure of the board? Can't make motions.
Weren't we going to just table it and get further explanation as to the job description and be able to discuss it, as well as, and I don't know if that was included, what the salary is and how we're going to go about paying for the salary. And I guess further information like that, that we could discuss next time, 17th.
The salaries are in the job description, but
Madam Chair,
yes.
if I may, I don't mean to interrupt, but at this point, I don't feel comfortable taking a vote tonight. I think there's too much waffling amongst the board, and I would suggest that I would propose tabling.
So is that a motion?
That is a motion.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Number 5 is a request to approve the draft job description for the human resources specialist and to post and fill the position. This is the generalist position. It has a new title to it, and it's a new job description, but this desperately needs to be filled. And it is budgeted and has been budgeted for 3 years, Karen, is it?
At least 2.
At least 2. Motion Eldridge, support Swanson. Is there any questions on this position?
I just want to clarify, this is like a while ago, you talked to us about this idea, and that we need like somebody learning some of the inner workings. Is this that particular position?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, this is, I'm going to say it, I'm not leaving tomorrow, but, I'm within 2 years out of here. So somebody needs to come in and learn the day-to-day operations of HR, and everything else that goes with it. So unfortunately, I shouldn't say unfortunately. Thank you. Yucca. Also posted a position on Friday for the same type of position. So we are going to be going up against Yucca to fill this type of position. So we'll see what happens.
Madam Chair.
But yes, Debbie, it is. Yes.
This just adds a little bit to my point, Karen, what you just said, and I apologize. I know that we've looked at these, and I'm just wondering if we should add a range to the wage, or if that's something that, you're like firm on this as your recommendation, or if we should add a range from 55 to 65. Especially
it was originally in the budget.
Competition.
It was originally in the budget this year at 50, with some investigation that I did. I realized 50 was probably low for it. So I thought, well, okay, let's go to 55. Because this is, I don't want to say it's not an entry level, but it is going to require someone who's got a little bit of HR background or knowledge anyway. 55 was within the range of what I was seeing, but it was on the lower part of the range. So
And I'll just add, and you know that I like how much I appreciate the work you do, and this is a really big and very important role. So thank you, and all the more reason to me to help cast a little bit of a bigger net, even if it might get some more applicants. I'm sorry. It's a little bit of competitiveness.
No, I didn't even know it. Somebody else brought it to my attention, and I'm like, oh, didn't even know it was happening. So,
yeah, if that's agreeable to Debbie and Stan to make it just 55 to 65.
Friendly amendment? Motion by Eldridge and support by Swanson. Is that accepted? Okay.
Thank you.
We have a motion and support to approve the draft job description for the human resource specialist and to post and fill it with a range of 55,000 to 65,000. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 6, request to approve the agreement with OHM to provide professional services for the carport rebuilding project in the amount of $51,400, which is budgeted, contingent upon the approval of a budget amendment. Motion Eldridge. Motion Eldridge?
Support.
Support Swanson, thank you. I'm sorry we can't talk.
This proposal outlines some of the work that's already been done. It was recently decided, we were directed to prepare this for a competitive bid. We're moving fast, assuming that this gets approved tonight, to prepare this for bid. We'll plan on getting it out yet this fall, and then we'll see what the weather does. But I would assume at this point in time, this will be a 2024 construction. Proposal includes all the required material testing per the Township Building Department and construction observation and inspection by our staff. Any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
And just as a way of history, there was a bad storm and
Yep, from the,
lifted our carport and put it on the ground, and this is to replace it for the vehicles that are parked underneath there. And I'm not clear, but I do know that we'll get insurance money. I don't know exactly how much yet. We're still submitting, is that?
Yeah, Madam Chair, just to speak on the insurance piece for the clerk's office, whenever we do get documentation that we can and are able to submit to the insurance department, we will, and then we will provide everyone with an update of, how that goes. But we don't have anything additional to submit at this time. The only thing we originally submitted was the original quote that Steve Adgorny had provided.
Which was like 69 something.
Memory.
Yeah.
yeah, and just to be clear, our design and everything not only includes the carport, but the pavement underneath that'll be removed, replaced, upgraded, concrete, just built to last, I guess. And then all of the design on the actual structure meets current standards, building codes, et cetera. So I'm guessing the final product, by the time it gets built and bid, will be around $200,000. That's a preliminary estimate. I'll update you closer to when we come back to bid this, and then as we award bids later this fall, winter.
I have a question. How long does it take to construct the carport?
Probably to do the removals and do the concrete, you're talking several weeks, and then to order the steel and all of that, there's some lag time there. And then some of that can be done in colder temps, but, nobody wants to be doing that in colder temps. You have welding and that. So, all in, probably 2 months.
Okay, yeah, that'll put us in December. Okay.
So what did we submit to the insurance carrier?
So originally, it was kind of like we said, it was in a storm, and we just brought on a new staff person for special projects, and that person was tasked with getting, people to figure out how to do the work, which he did. He received a quote for it, and we submitted that to insurance. In hindsight, because this is a municipal building, it's required by our policy and by some public act that we have to have detailed engineering with it. And so that's the step that we need to do now to proceed forward with before we do anything else.
We submitted something to the insurance carrier that estimated how much it would cost to replace it. I'm having a hard time understanding the process, so
The process wasn't really followed, but not to the end of fault of this was a storm. It was, at the time, an emergency to at least remove the carport. There was a new staff person, and we were all just doing, what we thought was the right move. So what was submitted to the insurance company was the original quote that was provided to us by Steve Adgorny from Northgate Construction in the amount of $69,000. And since that time, we've sort of done a rewind, involved OHM to get detailed engineering at some point. And so this is where we are today.
Because it looks like really what we've received then is close to what it's going to cost us for engineering. Am I wrong in that part, or?
Yes, and we will also be able to submit detailed engineering to our insurance company once we have anything to submit to them.
Does the insurance company understand, we're going to be submitting more stuff?
Yes.
Okay.
that's a good news. That hopefully it'll be covered by the insurance because it was wind damage. Any other questions or comments, Mr. All right, we have a motion and support. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 7 is request to waive the financial policy and to accept the low quote from Weingarts for the purchase and installation of the 3 snow plows in the amount of $24,742, which is budgeted.
Motion. Support.
Motion Hunter, support Eldridge, is that correct?
Good evening, John Hines, Municipal Services Director. Yes, this is a request to waive the financials policy initial authorization to seek bids to award the quote from Weingarts for the purchase of 3 snowplows to go on top or go with the 3 new F-250s that the board approved for purchase earlier this year. It is budgeted in the motor pool line, and it was the lowest quote of the 3 we got, again, from Weingarts, $24,742.50. Western Sales, $25,340.97, and then John Deere, $31,781.07.
Question?
Just because it was a low quote, is that the best quality of the 3?
Talking to it's the same plows from all 3 providers,
Right.
and talking with the Parks and Ground staff, they're very comfortable with the product from Weingarts, and we order from them all the time.
Okay. Thank you.
It's to waive it because the board authorized bids for it and they received quotes. So we have to waive that part. We're looking at our financial policy, at some things that we can make it easier and clearer to do. And we'll bring that back to the board, of course. So we have a motion and support. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. 2023 is Budget Amendment 13.
I have a motion to amend the 2023 budget amendment number 13. I'd move to increase the general fund budget by $127,438 to $14,780,826 and improve the line item changes as outlined. I'd move the budget amendment.
There's a motion by Rose, support by Eldridge to approve the budget amendment for Golf Village and the things we talked about and the carport that we just approved as well. Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The next item is the authorization to seek bids for cybersecurity services for residents and employees.
So moved.
Motion Eldridge. Support Swanson. Discussion. I'm losing my voice. This will come back to the board. I'm losing my voice, so I can't talk too much. Yeah, I can. I'm starting to lose my voice.
This is just, the memo says it, we provide cyber training for our employees right now. There's so many new threats on a daily basis that we hear from Travis. And the discussion turned to how would we do this for our community, because it seems like weekly we hear from somebody in the building who knows somebody in the community who was the victim of a scam. And it's generally the elderly losing life savings. So we think there are companies out there who can provide this service, and we wanted to look into it and see if the board would be open to that idea.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Treasurer Eldridge, or our IT department is, in favor of doing this?
Yeah, they have talked with us about it. They added their thoughts on the RFP and what it should include and not include, and if we move forward and get bids, then they would have to be, at least I believe they would have to be a part of the review of that and make sure that it's going to follow all of our guidelines internally as well.
Thank you.
Does a bid include, not necessarily at all being, online? Because with the elderly, sometimes...
They would be in-person trainings.
Great.
Yeah, where it would be a big community forum. It could be hundreds, if not thousands of people, depending on how many people show up, you would need a room similar to this, and do multiple different trainings on different parts of the township.
It's kind of exciting just to, if we can do it and it comes out, then do it as a township, as a service for residents. It will be so helpful because in every neighborhood watch meeting, someone talks and you know about them being victim of a cyber crime. And they just didn't know. And it's the little tips that they give and it's handwritten that they hand out. It helps us internally here to get it, and we go through a lot of that, but just to take it out to the community. You talk about really exciting, good things for our community. This will be one if it works out. I don't know any other community that does it. Yeah, so. We have a motion support. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. The final item under other business was to authorize the submission of the Department of Energy grant for our hydro dam.
So move.
Motion Rowe? Support Swanson? Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Are there any board member updates? Motion to adjourn would be ordered. Motion Eldridge, support Swanson at 10:20. Thank you. Oh, all in favor, I'm sorry.